and an unnotified parade in line with their legal duties. Young people were observed making petrol bombs before the parade commenced. These, along with other objects, were then thrown at police vehicles at the junction of Inniscairn Road and Linsfort Drive. Leaving the city cemetery, participants were reported to remove their paramilitary uniforms under the cover of umbrellas and burn them. This attack occurred despite previous communications with organisers who expressed their desire to have a respectful and dignified event. Police remind people there is no place for this type of criminal activity and it is not wanted by the vast majority of people in the city. Investigations into the incident are now being carried out as potential offences under the Terrorism Act 2000.
Meanwhile, security alert in the north has been declared as nothing untoward. Roads were closed and residents forced to evacuate their homes just after 9 o'clock last night when a suspicious object was found in the Circular Road area in the area of Newton Ards. An examination of the scene was carried out and the PSNI say the item was declared safe. Clonmany Shamrocks FC have released an appeal for information following an act of vandalism on their new Astro pitch. It is near completion. The social media post shows an image of a large rock which had been thrown onto the new facility. It is one of many dangerous objects reported to have been discarded. The club has asked for any suspicious activity to be reported to the Gardaí. The future of teaching as a profession will take centre stage at a number of teaching union conferences this week. Teacher shortages will also be discussed, with many schools reporting difficulty recruiting and retaining staff. Unions are also looking for pay rises in line with inflation, which is currently around 7%. General Secretary of the ASTI, Kieran Christie, says talks will take place on this later this year. And finally, the L2843 in Ardra between the N56 and the Mahara Caves will be blocked over the next 2 days. Essential roadworks mean the road is closed from 7:30am to 6pm today and tomorrow. A local diversion is in place. And finally, to weather. Bright and early this morning with passing heavy showers. It'll turn cloudy with a spell of rain developing early this afternoon. Blustery with fresh and gusty southerly winds, highs of 7 to 11 degrees. That's all for now. We'll be back again with the news and follow and obituary notices at 10 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
The new Steakhouse Stack is here.
Say what?
With 2 beef patties, crispy onions and peppercorn sauce. It's McDonald's, but the kind of McDonald's you'd make an occasion of. The kind that asks, date night, and answers, you bet. That deserves a lunch day, not just a lunch hour. The new Steakhouse Stack. It's McDonald's. And then some. Available until the 9th of May. Served from 11am. Participating restaurants only.
The county's #1 talk show. The 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
And a very good morning to you. This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. Donal Kavanagh with you on till 12 noon today and with you for the rest of this week. As we always say, a packed show lined up, but the most important part of the show is your contributions. So if you want to let us know what you think about the events of the day or what issues you'd like to hear discussed on the programme, you can text us 086 60 25,000. That number good for WhatsApp messages as well. You can call us on 074 91 25,000. 00353749125,000 if you're outside of the dialing area. We're also, of course, on social media. We can be got on Twitter at Highland Radio. It's Highland Hub on Facebook. And don't forget, by the way, we are broadcasting live on Facebook and on our YouTube channel as well. That's Highland Radio Ireland on YouTube. So you can watch the show unfold. Any guests on Zoom will be visible and you can see all the interactions as they happen. And you can, of course, comment on those platforms as well. So Facebook, YouTube, you can watch the show live. You can listen, of course, online as well on our website, highlandradio.com. And that website will, of course, have updated news stories all through the morning. Donna Marie working in the newsroom, of course. Outside, we have Niamh taking your calls along with Caroline producing the show this morning as well. Let's take a look at our papers this morning. We start with the Donegal Democrat as it is a Tuesday. And Dunlow's Emily is world champion again. Emily Colin-Angelo received a hero's welcome in her native Dunlow on Sunday when she arrived back with the Under-19 World Irish Dancing Championship title. It's the third time she's picked up that particular honour. She had the success at the Comisiún Rinci Gaeltachta World Irish Dancing Championships in Montreal, Canada on Friday. Also a sad story on the front of the paper. Body recovered from Crawley River. You'll have heard the story over the weekend. Gardaí investigating all the circumstances surrounding the recovery of the body of a man from the Crawley River in West Donegal on Easter Sunday morning. The man, believed to have been in his 40s, was removed from the river by the Coast Guard and pronounced dead at the scene. That's the front of the Donegal Democrat. Front of the Journal this morning, Derry Journal, big crowds for Carn Easter Parade, nice pictures there. And the main headline, crematorium plan for Inch. And Laura Glenn writes the conditional permission has been granted for Inishowen's first pet crematorium to be located on Inch Island. The permission was granted by Donegal County Council to Francesca McLeod for change of use of part of an existing farm machinery shed and workshop to create that pet crematorium and all associated site works at Black or Boholian. And that's the front of the Derry Journal. Front of the Irish Independent, one of the really sad stories over the course of the past 2 days has been that horrific crash in County Galway. On the road between Galway and Castlebar in the early hours of yesterday. Two 14-year-olds, one 15-year-old Lucas Joyce and 14-year-old Kirsty Bohan killed following that collision on the N84. I can't wake them up, the headline there. The main headline on the front of the Irish Independent, private nursing homes get millions in COVID subsidies. Philip Ryan writes that the private nursing home sector has received €220 million in COVID supports in addition to the 11 billion that the industry gets annually from the Nursing Home Support Scheme, or the Fair Deal Scheme as it's known. The temporary assistance payment scheme is due to end this month, but new figures show that investment firms boasting billions of euro in revenue have drawn €148 million from the state's COVID support programme. And that's, you can read more about that there on your Irish Independent. The main photograph on the front of the Independent, shades of a dark past. The tag underneath, a police vehicle is attacked with petrol bombs during a march by dissident Republicans in Derry yesterday. The scenes coincided with the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement and occurred on the eve of US President Joe Biden's visit to Northern Ireland. And I think, in fairness to PSNI, had been flagging up since Thursday or Friday of last week that they expected issues in Derry on Easter Monday afternoon. And it's not the first Easter Monday we've had pictures like this, unfortunately, and not the first Easter Monday we've had scenes like this in the lovely city of Derry. Front of the Irish Times this morning, Ombudsman criticises treatment of child asylum seekers. Discrimination means Ukrainians leave City West after a day while others remain. Dr. Niall Muldoon has warned the government of unacceptable preferential treatment, and that's an interesting story there. Officials warn of overcrowding risk in Mountjoy. Prison staff are considering buying bunk beds due to serious concerns over safety. And 2 teenagers killed and 2 injured in County Galway crash. That same story we saw on the Independent. The sports section, Jim McGuinness writing in the Irish Times, for Mayo, the hype and expectation has been replaced by a severe dose of reality. And if you want to read Jim McGuinness's thoughts, they're available to you in the Times. And the main picture is a picture of champion jockey Paul Townend producing a ride for the ages to win yesterday's Irish Grand National at Fairyhouse on I Am Maximus, trained by Willie Mullins and owned by J.P. McManus. That's the front of the Irish Times. Irish Daily Mail. We'll hear a lot, obviously, from teachers this week, the week after Easter, traditionally the week for the teachers' unions conferences. So the teachers' unions are going to be very busy. Norma Foley is going to be very busy, going from conference to conference over the next couple of days. And the main story on the Irish Daily Mail, teachers looking for €280 million pay rise, a figure that would fund 7,000 new teaching posts. Teachers are demanding another pay rise and want earnings to match the highest level of inflation or double the current rate. The Education Minister will be told today an additional pay increase for teachers would cost the state that further €280 million. John Boyle of this parish, of the Irish National Teachers Organisation, said a significant pay rise of up to 15% is needed to counter the housing crisis and the rising cost of living. That's the front of the Irish Daily Mail. Irish Daily Star this morning. Two teens dead in smash. Treasured students' tributes have poured in for two teenagers who lost their lives in that horrific Easter Monday car smash. A Galway school said they'd lost two treasured members following the deaths of Lucas Joyce and Kirsty Bohan. Two other teens were hospitalised. Teenage driver and another pal are rushed to hospital. Front of the Irish Daily Mirror, again, it's the same headline. 3 teens die in Bank Hall horror. Also, GAA starlet David, 15, and 2 friends killed in separate accidents. 3 teenagers died over the course of the bank holiday weekend, including Laois underage GAA player David Brown. He lost his life in a quad bike accident close to Emo Village, and there's more on the inside of the paper there. The front of the Mirror, also a picture of Joe Biden. Holy Joe is the little headline there. President Biden will visit Knock Shrine. Now we know that Joe Biden flies into Belfast tonight. We have an overall idea of his itinerary. I've been hearing that obviously with Donna Marie on the news throughout the course of the morning, but we'll not get the nitty-gritty details until closer to the time for obvious security reasons. But it does appear a visit to Knock Shrine is on the cards for President Biden. Front of the Irish Sun this morning, 4 kids aged 13 and 14 in car, girl and boy dead in 6 a.m. crash horror. Another boy and girl fight for life. Also, Monk's duck party for 60th. The monk will be dreaming of Chinese grub as he turns 60 in jail today. The Regency accused plans a duck pancake meal with friends if he's freed next week. That's the front of the Irish Sun, and that's how your papers are looking on this Tuesday morning. And as always happens after a bank holiday, it is kind of in my head. I keep, if I start calling the day Tuesday, you'll know what I mean. It is a Tuesday, and they were your papers. A reminder, just once again, that if you wish to make contact with us, you can do so. Text us or WhatsApp us on 086 60 20 5000, 07491 60 25,000 if you want to give us a call. Back after these.
The newspapers are courtesy of Kelly Centra Mountaintop Letterkenny, the C-Store National Large Forecourt of the Year for 2022. Visit the Inishowen Co-op Home Build event at the Inishowen Gateway Hotel Buncrana on Saturday, April 15th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Meet the suppliers for expert advice on all your home build needs. ICA support available on the day. See Facebook for more details.
Every year, about 2,600 people in Ireland get bowel cancer. Bowel screening helps to reduce your risk of developing it. If you're aged 60 to 69, you can register today for a free bowel screen test kit. Once you've done the test at home, return it by free post and we'll test your sample for levels of blood. If you need any more tests, we'll let you know. Register today at hse.ie/bowel screen or free phone 1-800 45 45 55 from the HSE.
If you're getting married, the in-house design team at BizPrint can get all your wedding stationery and signage needs customised to your requirements. Just visit weddinginvites.ie or call BizPrint at Port Road, Letterkenny on 91 779 55.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
It is 14 minutes past 9 on Highland Radio. It's a Tuesday morning. Let's go to Zoom, and we're joined this morning by Councillor Micheál Cullen-McGill-Haspag. Micheál, Majinwa?
Majinwa, did you want to look at cash quite digestiry yet?
Good morning. Micheál, 2 issues to discuss with you. First of all, I want to speak to you about An Bhráid in Donegal and the fact that someone lit a campfire and then walked away, a potentially very serious situation, thankfully averted.
Yeah, I was on my way back from Belfast on Saturday, and I got a number of phone calls, and people were extremely and rightly so angry. We had a situation which is not uncommon, where we had people camping at the beach at Bhráid, right beside the airport, within walking distance from the airport, maybe about 50, 60 feet. This time of year, with things being at, well, how things can be very dry, and we've seen the horrific ghost fires that we had over the number of years. And somebody was down over the weekend, camped, lit fires, and then took all their scrap and set it alight and just drove off. And that's not acceptable. First and foremost, the idea that you think you can come along to the community, our community, which is absolutely beautiful. The airport here has been selected over many years as one of the most beautiful landing sites in the world. We hold that with great pride. We have a fantastic management and staff at the airport who works extremely hard at what they do. We have the Carrickfinn Trust who owns that land. We could take great pride in our community. And the idea that somebody thinks that they can come along, put a handful of rocks around in a circle, camp in a place where they didn't even have the respect to ask, could they camp there, and then let a fire and then bugger off. That's not acceptable in any shape or form. I'm sure you saw the video yourself. It wasn't a case that there was a few sods of turf. It was a case of that they had plastic and wood and different materials and set it alight. And one person who came along and tried to put the fire out and unfortunately couldn't put the fire out, had to ring for assistance then to put the fire out from the airport. And that's, you know, if anything happened in between times while staff were away doing what was the right thing to do, you know, it would have left a different story for me and you to be talking about today. And like that, there's nothing wrong whatsoever, in my opinion anyway, as long as it's respectful to go wild camping. I do it myself around the islands, even around that area there. But the idea that you can think that you can come along, and if you go down to, like, if you look at some of the places around West Donegal, you come along and there's nothing but dots of black marks. People think they can just light fires. There's other ways of doing that. There's a respectful way to do that. And we see that the vast majority of the campers and the tents and the camper vans, that's how they actually do it. But this here, it's actually enraged quite a lot of people.
It raises the question, is it time perhaps for CCTV cameras so that if people act in that way, maybe car registration numbers can be captured and people can be called on to account for their actions and where necessary to make reparations? Because as you've said, it's not the first time this has happened.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure about CCTV cameras. I'm not a massive fan of them.
Yeah, I know you would have other issues, but...
I think people's privacy is very important, but I do know that somebody has caught the registration of this car on their phone by chance, purely by chance, and I am seriously considering putting it out there for the world to see who actually it was, because I think it's very clear that they were camping there, the fire was lit, and their car was in the camera by chance, and it's just not right. It's just not right. And I know people may think there's more important things to be worried about. Yes, there are more important things in some aspects to be worried about. But if that fire takes a light and it spreads, and we've seen the damage of loss of homes, loss of property, and very, very lucky there was no loss of life a number of years ago. Exactly this time of year, it was Easter. There were two separate fires. We fought one on Friday, up in Drumnacart. We spent all day fighting there, where we lost poor Anne, lost her house and property. Then we fought on Easter Monday. We fought over a huge area of West Donegal where people were so great from different parts of the county and country came to our assistance. But some foolish people just don't realise what impact this could have on our community.
I remember that one well. As you say, and it's coincidental that this happened so close to Airport Donal. Let's talk about what happened at the airport because of operational problems with the Aer Lingus regional flight. It never left Dublin, and then the return flight never left the airport, and a lot of people found themselves stranded.
Yeah, this is not unfamiliar. And first thing I'd like to say is this is no reflection whatsoever in relation to our fantastic staff, from cleaners to managers at Airport of Bridge or Airport Donal, who do fantastic work day and night. But the airline yet again, for technical reasons apparently, and I use that in inverted commas, brackets, is that there was technical problems. Maybe there was, I'm not sure, but I do know one thing, it's not good enough. That flight was full to leave West Donegal and Gaeltacht yesterday. I had one person in particular who was heading back yesterday to go to work today, and couldn't make that connecting flight. Now, I don't know everybody that was involved that was to fly yesterday, but I do know some of them that were in contact with me, and a lot of them were home for Easter. A lot of them had to get connecting flights from Dublin onwards, and now they're going to be out of pocket. We all know that it's difficult enough to finance the home journey, to come home to see your parents and loved ones in your community. But this airline now yet again have cancelled flights. Now, I've been in contact and with the airport, and I've been in contact where I've asked Thomas Pringle to raise this, what the Minister Thomas has done this before. I want a list of all the cancelled flights since the beginning of the year. It's not good enough. We wouldn't expect, and would tolerate if a bus didn't come on time. And at a 3 o'clock bus leaving from the Gaeltacht to go to Letterkenny or to Donegal Town or to Ballyshannon, wherever it's going, and it just didn't turn up. And then we weren't given proper notification. One of the people that were in contact with me says if we got the notification in time, we might have been able to get alternatives to be in Dublin for the connecting flight abroad, but they didn't. And it's a mess. And I would call on the airport to come out and give a statement, and not just a press statement. Come out, talk live like we are now, and tell us what's going on, and apologise to our community, because it's not good enough. Like it says, you wouldn't tolerate for a bus not to turn up. They wouldn't do it anyway. The bus companies that we have in West Donegal are second to none, and they wouldn't do that anyway. But what I'm saying is the community wouldn't tolerate it. So why should we tolerate a flight deciding not to turn up? We seen it a couple of weeks ago. It was days and ends that we were without flights, and the concern is that this is going to go back to the situation where we had a couple of weeks ago.
Now, I'm sure some people will have bought integrated tickets where the connecting flight, hopefully they'll be able to at least get the money back or get an alternative arrangements made. But there'll be some people who will have had a flight on another airline that it's not a connecting flight that they've paid for, and the money for that flight they've missed is gone, because as far as the other airline is going to be concerned, they missed their flight. So from that point of view, people will not only find themselves discommoded and late for work or whatever, they're going to find themselves in some cases, quite frankly, severely out of pocket.
Absolutely, like that one person and the individual that I'm thinking of, and no doubt maybe his family here listening to me talk about it. He's going to be actually very much out of pocket. He would have then had to get a lift to Dublin. Mm-hmm. He would have had to either share or pay for that petrol or diesel. He would have then had to get a flight at the last minute that would have cost him X amount of hundreds. And if he wasn't able to get that flight would have been got today. So that would have been still 300 for a flight, and possibly the loss of wages. So the airline, we all know, won't compensate for that there. But there should be stricter legislation in terms of people who are out of pocket at all. Surely if it's a case of bad weather or maybe heavy or strong gusts or something like that there, people can understand that. But by coming out and saying yet again a technical issue, that could be anything to write down to a puncture. Yeah.
Well, we know that Deputy Pringle did raise it with Leo Varadkar on the floor of the Dáil in February. At that point, the Taoiseach said he would look into the problem. So hopefully the Taoiseach will get some answers, and they will get some answers from the airline as well. It's an Aer Lingus regional flight. Obviously, didn't leave Dublin and then subsequently didn't leave Carrick. So presumably there was a number of people who would have been trying to get back to Donegal were severely delayed getting back up to the county as well as a result of that. So it had impact on both ends. Micheál,
I've noticed this morning when I woke up this morning, I noticed there was a few comments on my Facebook where people saying the return flight didn't leave until somewhere around 10 o'clock. Listen, this is really important, and people might say first world problems, but it's not. It's really important that we have the public service that we as taxpayers paid for. And Thomas, I'm confident, will continue to raise this. Wouldn't have any much faith now in Leo Varadkar given a response that we should be getting.
It's on the earlier issue.
Now and again.
Well, there's a headline for us. Micheál Conor McGlasbach, not a fan of Leo Varadkar. That's a shocker.
Everybody's shocked about that one.
Absolutely. Just on the earlier issue, caller says, we live in such a beautiful county. The councillor is right. A fire can so easily spread and cause huge damage to the local community. Never mind the vegetation and the animal life. So, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with the first comment, certainly. Michal Garamahagas, That's Councillor Michal Cullum-McGlassbach there speaking to us from West Donegal. And as he said, that is a really, really difficult situation where you have fires lit by people. They come camping. Now, as he said, there's ways of doing it that's respectful to the community, and there are ways of just coming in and doing it randomly, and this appears to be one of those random things. And you know, we do have such a responsibility whenever you're camping like that. And I have friends who camp. I'm thinking of one friend in particular who camps an awful lot. Hail, rain, snow, winter, summer, autumn, fall. And I know that he is hugely responsible, and his family are hugely responsible. And as Michal rightly pointed out, most people are. But certainly when you're in a community like that, it really is important that we show any community we're visiting the respect that they deserve. And I think respect is the right word there. Respect is the absolute right word to use, because when you're visiting or when you're in an area, you respect the area, you expect them to respect you. The least you can do is give them respect back. Another issue, and a letter, and letters always welcome. It's the 9 till noon show, Highland Radio, Pine Hill Mountain Top, Letterkenny, County Donegal. Let's be honest, Highland Radio, Letterkenny is going to get here. We don't need to worry over much about the mountain topper and any of that. Could you please bring it to someone's attention? Walking past the old tourist board building, 2 old caravans and rubbish lying around. It's a lovely walk now with the new footpath and bicycle lane, but when you see this, it's awful. We live in a tidy town. Can that be tackled? I think I actually know the area the caller was talking about. It's just the other side of the Port Bridge, if I'm correct. If you're walking in, say, from the direction of the Dry Arch toward the Polestar roundabout, on the left-hand side, just before the Port Bridge, when you're on that new footpath, in on the left-hand side, it's like a little wooded, almost like a little dale, if that's the right word, and a wooded area, and there's 2 caravans and yet some rubbish in there. The caller is correct in that. And yeah, it's an issue that potentially needs to be looked at, and hopefully that will. And I'm sure the council is aware of it, but no harm to actually say it and let the council know. Thank you very much indeed, caller, for that. 28 minutes past 9. We're going to take a short break. Back after these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
The world is getting a little more. But maybe more could mean something else. More means more proactive green energy solutions. More means more wind turbines and more recycling. More means more biodiversity and more energy storage. More means more hydrogen and more solar farms, because more clean energy means more efficient living, means more thriving communities, means more energy autonomy. That's why we're more than Mona. Learn more at morethanmona.ie. Board na Mona.
The groom goes free. The groom goes free. Yes, you heard it. The Groom's Room. Evolve Clothing, Letterkenny Retail Park. The groom goes free. Call in today. Terms and conditions apply.
Charge into summer with TUI. Secure your holiday today with savings for families and adults flying from Dublin, Cork and Shannon. Holiday sorted. TUI. Live happy.
An in rudatá rágad na de bhéitach rudí bíoga chur asca de bhearlanse. Is é? Deacrachtaí cudalta. Se. No ma bhíon faoi bhrú agóní. Se. No imníoch gomininic. Tá buinte acu ilig le de bhearlanse. Cén dói a bhfuil is a go é seo ilig? Brat níam im a dhé féin faoi mar is óldit.
Imní, brúseasta, ís le brí, gan a bheithan an colour, buinin siad seo ilig le de bhearlánta. Déan an ceangal agus bhaicúnamh ag yourmentalhealth.ie. Ó aimeanach na sérfíse sláinte.
And you're welcome back to the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. As we said at the top of the programme, it is the week for teachers' conferences, and Joanne Irwin from Donegal is the Assistant General Secretary of the TUI, the Teachers Union of Ireland, their annual congress taking place from today at the Silver Springs Hotel in Cork City. And Joanne joins us now on Zoom. Joanne, good morning to you.
Good morning, Donal.
It's always Easter week is the week we always get the teacher stories, Joanne, and there are a number of issues being discussed, issues that people will have heard over the past while: the retention crisis, the recruitment crisis, and also reclaiming the profession from bureaucracy. An important time to be having this conference, one would have thought.
Absolutely. I mean, we recently conducted a survey and we found, for example, in the last 6 months, of all the teacher vacancies that there have been nationally, 70% of those vacancies didn't have one teacher applying. So we really are at a teacher supply crisis. We are seeing subjects being lost in school because we don't have teachers. We see now more teachers teaching out of field, which means they're teaching subjects that they're not qualified to teach. So that is really affecting the service that we can provide to students. So we're trying to, we've been saying this for 10 years, that the unequal pay that we had post 2011 was going to cause this. A lot of people are, getting their qualification here, going abroad, and then they're not coming back. And we're trying to incentivize those teachers who are abroad to come home. And the only way that we can do that is if we offer them full-time contracts when they come home. And there is the availability there to do it. But we're seeing a lot of employers who don't want to offer full-time contracts or permanent contracts day one. And it's the only way we're going to address this crisis now in the teacher supply issue.
The other issue, of course, is pay, and at least one newspaper making the comparison that if teachers were to get the level of increases that are being sought by the various unions, the amount it would take to fund that would be enough to create 7,000 new teaching posts. Now, presumably, that's 7,000 new teaching posts at current salary levels. Your argument to counter that, I'm sure, not that I want to put words in your mouth, but your counter argument that's going to be, we can't even get teachers now, never mind get 7,000 more.
Absolutely. And for second level teachers in particular, we are now seeing a surge in demographics of that age cohort from 13 to 18. There was a big surge going through our primary schools. That has now hit our second level schools. So we can't get enough teachers to meet the democratic needs, the increase in the students coming into our schools. Never mind trying to do anything else that would enhance the education profession. But we really need to look at it. We're seeing now a lot more teachers leaving the profession early as well, which is a new phenomenon that never happened before. We're seeing people retiring at the age 55. And when we say to them, like, why are you going? They say, it's not because of teaching. We love teaching, but it's the paperwork, it's the admin, it's one initiative after another initiative. And if they could just get back to teaching and learning, the problem would not be as bad.
You do have, among the issues under discussion, as we said, reclaiming the profession from bureaucracy. What's been the cause of that? Is it new circulars coming from, be it Haddington Road or whatever, or is it the lack of secretarial and support staff in schools? I mean, what's at the root of this?
A lot of it is new initiatives that are foisted upon schools from the Department of Education. We've seen, for example, yesterday the Minister announced a whole programme around bullying and bullying awareness, which we absolutely welcome. We've no difficulty with that. Schools and teachers have always responded to various societal pressures, but we don't have the management structures in our schools anymore to support that. In schools, there used to be a post structure where people could apply for assistant principal 1 or assistant principal 2. Most of those were pulled in 2009 when there was the crash in the economy, which we understood at the time, although we didn't like it. But we're in a better place now. We need these post structures back in order to support all this administration work that's been foisted upon teachers. If you had more posts, we could have more pastoral care for students and all of that. At the minute, it's just been put on teachers to do for free. And it's not going to work anymore. And we, as I say, we have no difficulty with all these new initiatives if the structures were in schools to implement them.
The housing emergency obviously is going to have a major impact on this, and whatever it's like trying to get teachers in a county like Donegal, I mean, I can imagine there must be schools in Dublin in very, very serious difficulty, because I'm sure there are schools that are trying to get teachers in, but there's going to be nowhere anywhere next or near that school to rent that's going to be coming in at less than $2,000 and more a month.
Absolutely. And I look after a lot of the schools in the Dublin area. It's a huge problem up there. There are subjects that are being lost. They're particularly around the areas of engineering and construction studies, where teachers who would normally be teaching these subjects are now going back into the building industry. And we have students there that are doing the Leaving Cert in May and June of this year, and they've had no teacher all year. Like, it is really, really that bad. And in our survey, we found that 84% of those who we surveyed, which were those who joined the profession since 2011, can't get accommodation, and accommodation is the huge factor. Now, in some way, that benefits Donegal because a lot more people are coming to the west, where accommodation, although there still is availability crisis, it is that somewhat more cheaper than it would be to rent if you can get anywhere in Dublin. So the housing emergency will be discussed here at our Congress on Thursday, and we would have a lot of speakers who are just commuting huge distances. We have one teacher, for example, who's commuting every day from Limerick to Dublin. I mean, we talk about a climate emergency. We talk about all of that. Like, that's unsustainable. That's going to be a teacher who's going to burn out very soon and leave the profession. And it's purely because she can't get anywhere to stay around the Dublin or the commuter belt.
We know that, for instance, the INMO last week, the Nursing and Midwives organisation, was looking at the new children's hospital that's being built beside St James's. Anyone that gets the Lewis from Red Cow into Dublin city centre will pass by that building site whenever they're on the Lewis going in from Red Cow. But they're saying that, look, if we are going to get staff for a new hospital, they were going to have some form of modular housing, cheap housing units available for nurses in the city centre so that people can live in the city centre within walking distance of the hospital they're working in. Is a similar initiative like that going to be necessary for schools, do you believe? Do you think the government needs to be taking maybe a more holistic look at this and saying, well, maybe we need to do something, be it a short to medium term measure, where we can actually create accommodation for the nurses who are going to work in the new children's hospital, for the teachers who are going to teach in city centre schools, and maybe extend it out to other areas, be it Cork, be it Limerick or whatever, and even extend it where necessary to places like Letterkenny, where there is, as you say, maybe the rents are a little cheaper, but there is still issues of availability. And in highlighting Dublin, I don't want to in any way minimise the issues that you're going to get in Letterkenny or Sligo or locally, because there are issues. Let's not hide that fact. I mean, are there going to be initiatives like that needed from government? I mean, is it time for some new thinking rather than sort of saying, well, the market will take care of it? Because we've been looking at the market an awful lot in the past couple of weeks, and some of what we're seeing is not pretty.
Absolutely. And just to say, look, as I say, look, I have a lot of schools in Dublin. They are now advertising jobs with accommodation. We would never have seen that before, particularly around the areas of schools that may have boarding facilities for students. They're now offering that boarding accommodation. Come here, we'll give you a full-time contract, we'll give you permanent day one, and we'll give you somewhere to live in your first year. Like, that's hugely attractive to a teacher coming back from Dubai or Australia or somewhere like that there to come back in. But there absolutely needs to be thinking around that. And there's not. It's only the schools that can afford to do that are offering that at the minute, such as the fee-paying schools. You're not going to get that in a disadvantaged school, you know, in the middle of Dublin city centre. But the government needs to think about that. I mean, that absolutely would be solve an immediate problem. And it is immediate solutions that we need right now, not long-term plans. Like, we know the minister announced an additional places in primary teachers, but that's not going to come on stream for a further 6 years until they're qualified. And to be honest, all that means is more people to go abroad. Like, we're trying to get all of our teachers who are abroad to come back home. And like, one of the things that we're looking at, and I know it was something that Joe McHugh, when he was Minister for Education, like, he was out there trying to get teachers to come home. Though some of those teachers did come home, but only to find out all of their service that they did abroad isn't going to be recognised here. So they're starting back at the start of the scale again. So there are a lot of things that could be resolved literally overnight that would really solve this crisis.
Let's discuss pay, because let's be honest, all the teachers' unions are going to be saying to Norma Foley quite forcefully, I'm sure, over the next couple of days, we need pay increases and we need realistic pay increases. Various figures being mentioned. I mean, figures up to between 10 and 15%, and in some cases perhaps even more. Is TUI putting a figure on this in terms of what you're going to be saying to Norma Foley? This is what we need in order to keep the teachers we have and attract more teachers in.
Yeah, we haven't put a figure on that at all. We generally don't. I suppose we are currently in the current pay deal, which doesn't run out until December. It's likely that the talks around that pay deal will commence either before the summer or in September. And what we have asked at the minimum is that any pay increases would match inflation, just to keep the cost of living, sustainable. We're not looking for huge pay increases. Like, there's loads of people out there that are completely worse off, and we get that, but we are looking for a match of inflation, and we have not set any figure on that. We generally don't in the TUI, so we just kind of see where things are at the time of those pay talks.
Finally, in terms of, and you travel the country, Joanne, you see what's happening right across Ireland. You see what's happening in Donegal with the ETB schools, your Old Bailey, as it were. I mean, what's your sense of the short to medium term future? Are you confident? Are you wary? I mean, do you believe these issues that you're highlighting can be overcome and that we can say, look, we have traditionally had an education system in this country that we can be proud of. It always had its issues. It always had its problems. It's going to continue to have issues and problems. Nothing is perfect, but it was always a fairly good system. Are you confident we can get it back to have that sort of respect and to have that reputation that it would have previously enjoyed?
Absolutely. I mean, as you said, we're one of the highest performance education system across the OECD and across Europe. Like, we rank very, very high in all international standards. But we do have a teacher supply crisis. It is not unique to Ireland. It is across Europe. We're seeing it at a lot of European conferences that we attend. But we can see measures that can be implemented tomorrow morning at no additional cost to the state that would really solve this, such as give teachers permanent contracts day one, give them full-time hours day one. We have teachers down here who are speaking now this week who run 3 hours a week, and they can't work across schools at the minute for various different employer reasons, but that should be resolved. That teacher should get a 22-hour contract and be put where that need is. You know, be that, and I have to say Donegal ETB are actually really good at that. Where there is a need, they do move teachers, and even the whole issue around teacher supply, like certainly in our community comprehensive schools, our voluntary schools and our ETB schools in Donegal, we are very, very lucky in that we are able to plug a lot of those gaps because a lot of people want to come home. And that's something, even I attend all the student talks in the universities throughout Ireland to encourage them to obviously to join the TUI and speak about the profession. But every single place that I go, there is someone from Donegal, and all they say to me is, I want to go home. I want to go back. I want to give back to my local community. I want to go back to my area because I can see the teachers are part of a school community, and that's really evident, I think, more so in a rural area than elsewhere. So we are lucky in some way that we can shield that locally. It's not the case in some of the other, as you say, the urban areas that I look after. It is a real problem. If there's ever a redeployment scheme, there's a lot of people saying, I'll take this opportunity to get back home.
Norma Foley obviously has been minister for a while now. You've been dealing with her for a while now. Is she a minister that you have confidence in?
Well, I suppose that's a strong question. I think everything around the senior cycle reform would certainly make us concerned over various announcements made by the minister. Like, there was an announcement made in March 2022, so over a year ago, that there was going to be reform to senior cycle. We welcomed an awful lot of that reform, but there was an announcement made that the English paper and the Irish paper was going to change, and then for a full year we heard nothing. And we were begging for consultation. We were begging to get into the door and say, what does that mean? What does that mean? And then only a few weeks ago, we were told it was deferred. So we definitely, look, every minister should consult with the people on the ground who are actually, to implement all of this. And I don't just mean teachers, I mean the students. I mean, we work a lot with the Irish Second Level Students' Union, and obviously the president is from Letterkenny as well. And but she needs to listen to the people who it affects and the people who have to implement it. So I think there's an opportunity to do that. I don't think it has happened to date.
Caller says teaching posts are struggling to be filled. It's because they're predominantly temporary, substitute or part-time and not permanent. Who can risk coming home for that? And that really, I suppose, speaks to what you were saying to us earlier.
Absolutely. It's a huge problem. And even if a school, like, a lot of people come back and they might get a maternity contract, they might cover for 6 months, but there's no reason why the state can't employ these teachers on full-time contracts and move them around to the schools where there is that need, particularly in areas such as Irish or the sciences or maths, where there's schools that would love to offer chemistry, love to offer PE, for example, and they can't because they may only have 6 or 7 hours a week to give a PE teacher, and there's no PE teacher going to come back from anywhere for 7 hours a week. But there could be 7 hours in one school and 7 hours in another school in order to reach their full-time contract. So that's no additional cost to the state, but it's just kind of thinking, I suppose, outside the box a bit.
Joanne Herman, thanks indeed for speaking to us this morning, Assistant General Secretary of the TUI. I'm not sure, do you say enjoy your time in Cork? I suspect you're going to be very busy down there over the next couple of days, but we can expect quite a lot of stories to come out of the various teachers' unions conferences, all of which are taking place this week. Joanne, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you, Donal.
That's Joanne Irwin there, as we say, Assistant General Secretary of the TUI, speaking to us there from Cork, and that conference getting underway today and other conferences getting underway today as well. Let's take a short break. Weather is next.
At Cooney's Home Interiors, we pride ourselves on offering you the very best in choice, quality and value on all home furnishings. Treat your home with a visit to Cooney's today and choose from our large range of suites, tables, beds, not to mention our large selection of home accessories. Our motto is, if you see it, you can buy it, and we will deliver it to your door. Cooney's Home Interiors, Letterkenny Retail Park. Style and perfection at incredible value.
We should all be grateful to Vespula vulgaris, the common Irish wasp, because Vespula vulgaris is equipped with an early warning system, only audible when you're in harm's way. Just like front assist, driver alert and lane assist. Early warning systems equipped as standard on Volkswagen's T-Cross, T-Roc and Taigo SUVs, which only kick in when you need them. Search Volkswagen SUV.
Volkswagen.
Shop Evolve Clothing for Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Paul and Shark, Gant, and many more casual and streetwear brands. Menswear Superstore, Letterkenny Retail Park, or online at evolveclothing.com. Easter sale now on.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Lanzarote is back. Check out our new weekly flights to Lanzarote with Ryanair. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
And Met Éireann tell us this morning it will be largely bright. Well, it was largely bright earlier on, but that's changing, turning cloudier as we speak, with rain spreading northwards right across the region from around about midday. Heavy downpours in places during the evening, becoming blustery with southerly winds increasing fresh to strong and gusty this afternoon. They'll veer west later. Top temperatures today 7 to 9 degrees Celsius. Blustery tonight with fresh southwest winds, possibly very windy early in the night. Rain at first will clear with clear spells developing in many areas. Lowest overnight temperatures 0 to 3 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow dry in most areas in the morning, but mostly cloudy with spells of rain in the afternoon. Top temperatures tomorrow again 6 to 9 degrees Celsius. So it was a bit warmer last week now that it's going to be this week. So they always say you have to be careful in April. What's the old saying? Cast near a clout till May is out, or whatever. You get a few really nice days in April and you're thinking, yay, it's turning and the summer is coming. Not quite yet by the looks of the weather situation. Now, let's read some comments. A very sobering and serious comment. A caller says, over the weekend I read a passing reference which was total news to me and shocking, that more people have now died by suicide in Northern Ireland since the Good Friday Agreement than had died in the previous 30 years of the Troubles. Why is this fact being swept under the rug, although it's quite politically convenient to cover up? But damning, this says something is terribly wrong and nothing is really being done to save the thousands of young lives. What does it say about a shared future? Sadly, there are lives being lost by suicide all over, not just in Northern Ireland. It's happening here as well, and we regularly, sadly, hear some sad tales from our own area as well. Is there a political cover-up? I'm not sure that there is a political cover-up per se, but certainly it's an issue that does need to be discussed. I absolutely agree with the caller on that one. We do need a large discussion about suicide in Northern Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, in the UK, across Europe. There needs to be a discussion on this because there are some very sad stories coming, and sadly no part of our island and further afield is immune. We know there were scenes of trouble in Derry yesterday, close to the city cemetery, where a commemoration had taken place before and after the ceremony itself. We had been getting indications from the PSNI on Thursday and Friday of last week that there were concerns something could be in the offing for Easter Monday, and so it came to pass. Joined on the line by DUP MP Gregory Campbell. Gregory, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Gregory Campbell, we often hear, that these incidents are spontaneous and it's not intended, and it just happens because of disaffection in an area. It would seem that explanation can't really be used on this occasion.
No, that's right. When you looked at some of the video footage that we all saw, probably on news bulletins, and you saw crates of petrol bombs, so it wasn't a case of somebody going off and getting a couple of bottles and filling them with some petrol. It was a case of something being organised by presumably older people, because quite a few of those who were actually involved in the petrol bombing were quite young. You know, they looked to be anything between 11 and 16 years of age, around about that. So normally that wouldn't give you the indication of an organised thing. It would more likely be older people who have some experience of this. So that's concerning, and I think the police now have to step up their plans to try and deal with this. They had helicopter footage up. They had Land Rovers there with cameras. So they have to try and ensure that the people behind this are brought before the courts.
As you said, many young people involved in these incidents, and even someone who is 15 now. They were born 10 years after the Good Friday Agreement. So the excuse that they're reflecting what they experienced during the Troubles, etc., that really doesn't hold water. I mean, these are young people who have grown up in an era of peace, who have not in any way experienced what people like yourself and people of your age and your vintage would have experienced over the years in Northern Ireland.
Yes, and that would tend to allow us to make the assumption, and I think it's a fairly soundly based assumption, that the older people who were orchestrating yesterday's events were also orchestrating the mindset that brought people out onto the streets. I mean, even if you're trying to organise young people and arrange crates for petrol bombs and getting the petrol, to actually motivate them to throw petrol bombs at Land Rovers and at police officers, you need to try and inculcate some form of hatred and animosity and political angst in their mind to get them to do that, even if you organise all the things behind the scenes. So there's an element of organisational activity that's going on that I think the schools, parents and community workers have to try and deal with to stop this reoccurring.
Michelle O'Neill has been vocal in her condemnation of what happened. Sinn Féin have been vocal in their condemnation. Community leaders in the city have been vocal in their condemnation as well. Do you take some comfort from the fact that people like Sinn Féin are quite strong on this, that it appears that this does not have the support of what we might term wider republicanism?
Well, certainly condemning it is better than condoning it, which is what used to happen in years gone by Sinn Féin personnel. So condemnation is much better. But I think we need to go beyond that, because we all need to stand not just in condemnation of this, but we have to then actively say to people in the community, to neighbours, to friends, look, this is just not acceptable, and we're going to take steps to ensure that everybody knows it's not acceptable. And if those steps include getting the names of people we believe who were involved to the police so that they can call them in for questioning, then we are prepared to do that. That's what people have to do now, as well as condemnation, because, you know, the dissident Republican activists will wear the condemnation. It's like water off a duck's back to them. They expect to be condemned, but they don't expect to be sitting in front of a judge and hopefully getting sentences that are, somewhere in the region of what is required to deter them from doing it again. So that's what's required, as well as condemnation.
And the other question is, given that it is, as you've indicated, widely believed that there would have been figures behind the scenes who were orchestrating what was happening, the sad reality is, in cases like this, very often the ones who find themselves before the court are the ones in the front line who have been directly involved, and those that were pulling their strings and those that were pushing them into that situation in the background tend to stay in the background and tend not to be called to account for their actions.
Yes, and that's where I think the parents of the children yesterday come into play, because they need to consider, do I want my son or daughter, mostly young males, but do I want them to end up in the position where they don't get a job, and the reason they don't get a job is not because there aren't jobs available. It's because they have a criminal record. And part of the reason for that is I allowed them as a parent to get involved with people whom I believed to be engaged in illegal activity. They ended up throwing petrol bombs at the police officer, and in a few years' time, when they come of age, they end up getting into more trouble, and the cycle continues. That's what parents and community workers and all of us have to remember, that these young people will end up doing harm not just to police officers and vehicles, but they'll do harm to themselves for a lifetime if we don't ensure that the community as a whole unites against this activity and gets it stopped.
It's clear that the police had intelligence that this was going to happen. They were quite clear from about Thursday, Friday, and even earlier than that last week. They were quite clear that something was going to happen on Easter Monday. It has happened on Easter Monday before. It's not the first year that we've seen those scenes in recent times. You would expect, I'm sure, that a police investigation will continue that will hopefully build on that intelligence from their point of view and try to get the root of what actually happened here.
Yes, that's, as I said earlier, that's what needs to happen now. The police did give plenty of notice, but they also, in giving plenty of notice to wider society, they were also indicating that they had plenty of notice. So hopefully now sufficient time was allowed for them to have plenty of video footage now, which they will be able to go through over the next few days and weeks. And they probably have a reasonable idea of who may have been involved behind the scenes anyway. So hopefully we can expect to see people being questioned, and if sufficient evidence is available through the video footage, that needs to be compiled into a case, goes to the prosecution service, and hopefully convictions follow. That's the way to deal with this. And if parents at the same time ensure that their young people, their sons or daughters, aren't involved in this sort of activity, that's the way to stop this and to ensure that, whenever President Biden arrives later on, the last thing you want is video footage going across the globe of petrol bombs thrown at police officers in a vehicle, and then a few miles away the President visiting, hailing peace in Northern Ireland. How ironic would that be for footage tonight and tomorrow?
Will you be meeting President Biden during his trip? Are you going to go to the airport tonight?
No, I'm otherwise engaged, but I know Sir Geoffrey will be meeting along with the other party leaders, so I imagine it will be quite short because it is a brief visit, but they may get an opportunity to have a brief discussion with him.
Gregory Campbell, DUP MP, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. Thank you. That's Gregory Campbell there, MP in East Derry. Earlier we spoke about the delays to the flights, and Councillor Colin McGlassbuck saying that Thomas Pringle will be looking into the issue. Just a caller saying, I called Thomas Pringle's office asking for information about something. I was told they'd check it out for me. It's 6 months ago. I'm still waiting and I haven't heard. That's just a line there from a caller. And it's very much coming up to time now for news and obituary notices. Just one or two more comments. Just a little note in. The Good Friday Agreement is 25 years old, and so are you. We'd like to celebrate the 25 years of the Good Friday Agreement with all those born on the 10th of April 1998 by wishing them all a very happy and peaceful 25th birthday. A mention from you could spread the word to families on the island who could join in that celebration of relative peace in a personal way. Thanks to all those who work for peace and continue to do so. And that comes from Susan, Arthur and Fran. It's a very nice little thing. So anyone who turned 25 yesterday on the 10th of April, who was born on the 10th of April 1998, congratulations. You share your birthday with a very, very important time in the politics of our country. This is Highland Radio. It is coming up to 10 o'clock. We're going to take a short break. Donna Marie with the news and obituaries after these.
Get set for spring at B&Q with 3 for 2 on interior paint, including all paint mixing. With brands like Dulux, Valspar and Farrow & Ball. Shop in store or at DIY.ie. That's spring nailed. You can do it. Exclusions apply. Value of every third item per single transaction and descending price order deducted. End 17th April. See DIY.ie.
The choices we make determine where we're going. Where will your choices take you? Visit Kelly's Toyota, Letterkenny or Mount Charles. and join the thousands of Irish drivers who swap diesel for Toyota Hybrid Electric, lowering their emissions and fuel costs. We've Ireland's widest hybrid electric range, including the Toyota CHR and Yaris Cross. Don't miss out. Order today at Kelly's Toyota, Letterkenny or Mount Charles. You'll never take a wrong turn with Toyota. Built for a better world.
Connect Hearing is open for free hearing tests. Our audiologist is available Monday to Friday for wax removal services at our Letterkenny clinic in the Courtyard Shopping Centre. We also offer a home visit for those who aren't able to visit us. Our hearing is our social sense. Are you finding hearing more of a challenge? Call Ursula today on 07491 13296 to make an appointment. Good hearing helps us to connect to our family, friends and loved ones. Connect Hearing, connecting you to life.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's Donna Marie Doherty with the news in full at 10 o'clock. A Donegal councillor is condemning a campfire which was left unattended while still alight near Donegal Airport over the bank holiday weekend. The fire, which can be seen in a video doing the rounds on social media, was compiled of a circle of rocks and burned an array of material, including plastic bottles. Speaking on this morning's 9 till noon show, Councillor Michael Colin McGilla Aspog called the act foolish and disrespectful. He's added that we've seen this in the past and how campfires can get out of hand.
It's just not right. It's just not right. And I know people may think there's more important things to be worried about. Yes, there are more important things in some aspects to be worried about. But if that fire takes a light and it spreads, and we've seen the damage of loss of homes, loss of property, and very, very lucky there was no loss of life a number of years ago. Exactly this time of year, it was Easter. There were two separate fires. But some foolish people just don't realise what impact this could have on our community.
Attacks on Derry police over the bank holiday weekend have been described as disheartening by the PSNI. Police were on high alert at Easter commemoration parades. However, a number of missiles, including petrol bombs, were thrown at a PSNI Land Rover. Jayden Clafferty reports.
Police officers came under attack in Cregan yesterday while in attendance at an unnotified parade in line with their legal duties. Young people were observed making petrol bombs before the parade commenced. These, along with other objects, were then thrown at police vehicles at the junction of Inniscairn Road and Linsfort Drive. Leaving the city cemetery, participants were reported to remove their paramilitary uniforms under the cover of umbrellas and burn them. This attack occurred despite previous communications with organisers who expressed their desire to have a respectful and dignified event. Police remind people there is no place for this type of criminal activity and it is not wanted by the vast majority of people in the city. Investigations into the incident are now being carried out as potential offences under the Terrorism Act 2000.
Clonmany Shamrocks FC have released an appeal for information following an act of vandalism on their new Astro pitch, which is near completion. The social media post shows an image of a large rock which had been thrown onto the new facility. It is one of many dangerous objects reported to have been discarded. The club has asked for any suspicious activity to please be reported to Gardaí. The waiting times for driving tests should reduce later this year, according to the Minister of State for Transport. Currently, the average wait time is 21 weeks. However, more testers are being recruited. It's expected the wait times will be cut to 10 weeks in Q1 next year. Minister Jack Chambers says they hope to speed up the recruitment process.
With 75 testers being recruited, and there'll be a 3-month recruitment process and 2 months of training. So they'll be in place by October of this year, and we're hoping to even expedite that if possible. And we should see the waiting time start to reduce from then on.
Pay and staff shortages will be topping the agendas at a series of teacher conferences today. The National Teachers Organisation continues its congress in Killarney. TUI delegates are meeting in Cork, while the STI holds its annual conference in Wexford. ICTU President Kevin Kavanagh will address Into members in Kerry later and will be telling delegates that the new national wage talks later this year will be firmly focused on the cost of living, rising prices and how that impacts on pay.
We will be considering whether or not the government are going to withdraw, as it would appear to be the case, the various measures that they introduced, like the energy credit. And we will obviously be looking at the projections for inflation over the period of any agreement. So all of these things together, I think, will certainly be the main focus for the negotiators on the union side.
US President Joe Biden will start his visit to Ireland in Belfast later. It'll mark the beginning of a 4-day visit to the island. Sean Defoe has more.
The big event in Northern Ireland really is tomorrow, early afternoon, around lunchtime. He's going to give an address to Ulster University students and also to the political leaders in Northern Ireland who will be there instead. And I suppose the focus of that being that, look, Ulster University, it's a very Belfast city centre oriented campus. They've got a new campus that they put an awful lot of money into. And this was an area of Belfast that maybe would have been a no-go area at times during the Troubles, so that's what he's going to be very much focusing on, and meeting Rishi Sunak in a bilateral meeting at that as well, and talking to some of the Northern Party leaders.
And now to weather. Bright this morning with passing heavy showers. It'll turn cloudy with a spell of rain developing early this afternoon. Blustery with fresh and gusty southerly winds, highs of 7 to 9 degrees. That's all for now. We'll be back again at 11 o'clock with the news headlines. Until then, good morning. The obituary notices this Tuesday morning, April 11th. The death has taken place of Pete Doherty, Drim, Cloughan. Pete will repose at the home of his nephew Patter and Myra McMenamin, Cloughan Beg in Cloughan, from 7 p.m. today. Rosary is at 9 p.m. with family time after the Rosary until 12 noon tomorrow. Removal at 4:30 p.m. tomorrow to repose in the oratory of the Church of Our Lady of Perpetual Succour, Glenfin, to arrive for 5 p.m. Rosary is at 8 o'clock. Requiem Mass is at 12 noon on Thursday, with burial afterwards in Kiltyvogue Cemetery. Funeral Mass can be viewed live on MCN Media. The death has taken place of Pat Tully, Pound Street, Carndonagh. Her remains are reposing at her home. Funeral from there tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. to the Church of the Sacred Heart, Carndonagh, for Requiem Mass at 11 a.m. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. House private for family only until 10 a.m. tomorrow. House open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. tomorrow. The death has occurred of Mary McKinney, Gorton Amok, Castlefin, reposing at the home of her brother Jimmy and sister-in-law Mary McKinney, Gorton Amok, Castlefin. Funeral from there tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for Requiem Mass at 11 a.m. in St Mary's Church, Castlefin, with interment afterwards in St Mary's Cemetery, Castlefin. Family time please from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. Family flowers only please. Donations in lieu if desired to St Joseph's Hospital, Stranorlar, Finview Ward, care of any family member. The death has occurred of Anna Harrison, née Callahan, Lucan, County Dublin, and formerly of Port Road, Letterkenny, County Donegal. Removal to St Mary's Church, Lucan, tomorrow, arriving for Requiem Mass at 10 a.m, followed by cremation in the Newlands Cross Crematorium. The death has taken place of Thomas Tom Connolly, Killyclug, Letterkenny. Tom's remains are reposing at his late residence today from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Funeral from there tomorrow morning for Requiem Mass at 11 a.m. in St Eunan's Cathedral, Letterkenny, followed by interment in Leck Cemetery. Funeral Mass can be viewed on the Church Services website. House private on the morning of the funeral. Family flowers only please. Donations in lieu of flowers to the orthopaedic ward of Letterkenny University Hospital. The death has taken place of Agnes Campbell, Capri, Ballybuffet. Requiem Mass in St Mary's Church, Stranorlar at 11 o'clock today, with burial afterwards in Kiltyvogue Cemetery, Glenfin. Family time please before the funeral this morning. The death has occurred of Mary Melly Conde, Caravan Road, Dunlow. Funeral Mass today at 11 o'clock in St Crona's Church, with interment afterwards in Mahray Cemetery. Family flowers only. Donations in lieu to the Donal Community Hospital. The death has taken place of Mary Curran, the Rohan Ramelton, and formerly Dublin and Kildare. Funeral Mass today at 11 a.m. in St Mary's Church, Ramelton, followed by cremation in Lakelands Crematorium, Cavan at 5 p.m. Funeral Mass can be viewed on Church Services TV. Family time, please, before the funeral this morning. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Hello, I'm Caoimhe de Barra from Trócaire, urging you to return your Trócaire box donation. Your support will bring emergency food baskets, urgent medical care and fresh safe water to families in Somalia. Families who have lost everything in the worst drought in the country's history. Your help can make all the difference. Visit trócaire.org or call 1800 408 408. You see, it's not just a box, it's a lifeline. Trócaire, together for a just world.
Welcome back to the second hour of the 9 till noon show on this Tuesday morning. Donal Kavanagh with you until 12 midday. Just to remind you, our community Garda slot is coming up in a few moments' time. Garda Grania Doherty is going to be with us, I believe, and that's coming up at around about 10:15 in just a few moments' time. So please do stick around for that. You can potentially help Garda solve some issues that are on their books in the northwest area. So that'll be Grania. She's coming up, as I say, in around about the 10:15 mark in just a few moments' time. With regards to the issue in Donegal Airport, where the flight from Dublin to Donegal didn't make it yesterday, and then people found themselves unable to travel to Dublin from Donegal because the incoming flight was cancelled. Caller says, could that have had anything to do with the Ryanair flight, which had difficulties on the runway? That did strike my mind. Now, I'm not sure, because that happened on Sunday. Now, and that happened on Sunday afternoon. My understanding is that, yes, they closed the runway for a time, but I think that was a very specific issue to that Ryanair flight and to the nose wheel on it. They were doing, obviously, a very clear search of the runway to make sure there were no pieces of debris on that south runway. So that runway was closed for several hours, and they would have done a very painstaking search on that. I'm not sure that would have lasted right through into yesterday and delayed it. The issue that was, the airline said it was a technical issue, and it seemed to be suggesting it was a technical issue with the plane. I could be wrong on that, because as it happened, there was actually a close family member of mine had been in North Wales for the weekend and was flying home from Liverpool to City of Derry Airport on Sunday afternoon, and the Loganair flight from Derry to Liverpool never made it over there. So the flight from Liverpool to Derry obviously didn't take off, and she found herself having to, at very short notice, book herself onto an EasyJet flight from Liverpool to Belfast, which got in much later on Sunday evening, and then someone drove from Letterkenny to Belfast International to pick her up, which was not on the original plan, and that was from Liverpool itself. But I mean, again, it seems to have been just a coincidence of timing, more so than linked to the actual issue with the Ryanair plane. Now, if you want to get in touch with us, by the way, you can text us 086 60 25,000, WhatsApp us on that number as well. We're 07491 25,000. Niamh and Caroline taking your calls outside at the moment, or you can use social media, of course, Highland Hub on Facebook, where you can also watch the programme unfold, as you can do on the Highland Radio Ireland channel on YouTube. You can also use Twitter. It's at Highland Radio on Twitter, and we're also on Instagram and Snapchat and on other social media platforms as well. Now, if you play Highland Radio NCBI Radio Bingo, it's time to get your numbers. So grab your books, grab your pens, and in just a moment, we'll hand you over to Canis.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Tuesday the 11th of April. You're playing on the brown sheet. The reference number is S12. It's game number 15. The numbers are 12, 88, 63, 38, 46, 64, 42, 2, 53, and finally 14. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI bingo information at highlandradio.com.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Tuesday the 11th of April. You're playing on the brown sheet. The reference number is S12. It's game number 15. The numbers are 12, 88, 63, 38, 46, 64, 42, 2, 53, and finally 14. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI bingo information at highlandradio.com.
Make great photos into beautiful gifts at McGee's Chemist Letterkenny. Different gift ideas include canvas prints, freestanding or ready-to-hang art blocks, and personalised photo books, perfect to mark any occasion. There's also jigsaws, calendars, mugs, and much more. For details, visit mcgees.ie. Turn your favourite moments into something truly special with McGee's Chemist Letterkenny.
Callahan's Gala and Go Birch, your one-stop family shop. With over 50 years of experience, we pride ourselves in providing a top-class customer experience. Keen fuel prices, convenience shop, hot deli, hardware.
And Frosty's famous special recipe ice cream.
Family-run, helpful staff and service with a smile.
Sure, it's all go at Callahan's.
The Community Garda information slot is brought to you by Sheridan Security Systems, protecting what you value most. Call today and get your zero-wire alarm system from €299. Sheridan Security, 91-26025.
And you will come back to the 9 till noon show time for our Garda Community Information slot, and delighted to be joined in studio by Garda Grania Doherty. Grania, good morning. Right, it's Grania, an awful lot obviously on the cards this morning. So we begin with some criminal damage at Lisone Avenue in Buncrana.
Yeah, Buncrana Gardaí are investigating this incident. It happened in the area of Lisone Avenue in the early hours of Tuesday the 4th of April, in and around 3 a.m. it's believed it happened. A resident at a property there heard a few loud bangs, and the following morning they went out, checked over their property. They discovered that glass had been cracked in an upstairs window. So it's believed that stones may have been thrown at this window in an effort to smash it. So we appeal to anybody, particularly maybe other residents in that area, anybody that was in the area had a dash cam, if they could make contact with Gardaí in Buncrana. So anybody that witnessed the incident or observed any sort of activity in that area overnight, if they could contact Gardaí in Buncrana or the Garda Confidential line on 1800 666 111.
Now I'm just going to lean over and just get that mic a little bit closer. Just pull that a bit closer into yourself now, because and get a little closer if you could, because it's not picking it up, and obviously this is really important stuff that we do want people to hear. Going now with another case of criminal damage, this time to Ballymacool Woods in Letterkenny.
Yes, this incident happened at the Green Ballymacool Woods between 5 p.m. and 1 a.m. on Saturday the 8th of April. So again, the resident of that property, they were away from home, returned home to discover that the glass in their front door had been smashed. So again, in this instance, it would appear that a stone was thrown at the glass. We're appealing again to residents in that area to contact Gardaí in Letterkenny on 9167100, just if they witnessed any sort of antisocial behaviour maybe taking place in that area. Or if they have any other relevant information, we'd like to hear from them also.
A theft this time at the Nick Ardra between the 6th and 7th of April. That was last week.
Yeah, so this car was parked up just at the Nick Ardra along the roadside there, and 4 alloys were stolen from it between 5 p.m. on Thursday the 6th and 8 a.m. the following morning, Friday the 7th of April. So again, to anybody living in that area, we appeal to them, or to anybody who may have travelled in that area between those times, just any suspicious activity, to make contact with Gardaí in Ballyshannon on 071 985 8530.
Another theft, this time the theft of sheep in Glencullen. Now, it happened at some point over a period of some weeks between March and April.
Yeah, so this was only recently reported to Gardaí, actually. Yeah, so these sheep, 40 sheep, mainly ewes, and some of whom were in lamb. So they were stolen from a mountain area at Largy Brack, Glen Columkill. So it's believed they were stolen between March 12th and April 2nd. So we just received the report in recent days. So we appeal to anybody who may have information in relation to the theft of these animals or in relation to the current whereabouts of them to contact Gardaí in Ballyshannon on 071 985 8530. I mean, 40 sheep, that's a massive loss to any farmer. It's a massive loss to suffer. So anybody with any sort of information, they can contact the Garda Confidential line either on 1800 666 111 if they don't feel comfortable contacting their local Garda station.
A road traffic collision in Letterkenny. This one happened on Holy Thursday, just outside Ballyrain School there.
Yeah, Thursday the 6th of April. So shortly before 6:50pm, just happened on the Ballyrain Road, outside Ballyrain National School there at the crossing. So between a pedestrian and a car. So the pedestrian was taken by ambulance to Letterkenny Hospital to receive treatment. Thankfully, their injuries are not believed to be life-threatening. So Gardaí did speak with all parties involved at the scene. So we appeal to anybody who may have travelled along this road, who may have witnessed the incident, or to anybody who travelled on that stretch of road who had a dash cam to contact Gardaí in Letterkenny on 9167 100.
As you say, thankfully not life-threatening injuries, and we wish the injured person well there. Advice for people with family members who may be susceptible to bogus callers, and this is one of these things that crops up again and again, and I suppose it's one of those problems you always do have to be aware of.
Yeah, and thankfully we haven't had any recent reports in the Donegal division in relation to bogus callers, but at this time of the year, usually this does crop up, that there are occurrences of bogus callers calling to people. And I did see something online a couple of days ago that there have been a few reports further down the country in relation to bogus callers calling to houses. So just in light of that, we thought we'd issue a piece of advice to anybody. If anybody has maybe family members who live alone or who may be considered vulnerable, we would like them to speak to those people also in relation to this, just to advise them in relation to it. So with the longer, brighter evenings now, it's possible we will see a rise in the occurrence of incidents involving bogus callers. These callers may arrive to offer services such as could be power washing, painting, general maintenance, tarmacking. They could be selling goods either. So these callers prefer to target the more vulnerable and people who live alone. So we advise everybody, just do not engage with these callers. Don't open your door to anybody before you are 100% confident that they are known to you or that they have a genuine reason to be there. Use a chain lock for added security. And these callers can be quite intimidating. Often they might refuse to take no for an answer, particularly if they know that you're there alone. They may be very overbearing. Keep your door locked. Contact Gardaí immediately if you encounter such a caller. Try to give as much information as possible. As they're leaving your property, glance out. Try to see, have they a mode of transport, what colour it is, registration number, and give a good detailed description of the caller. So we also ask everybody, when you're out and about, to be vigilant. Just report any suspicious people or vehicles to us immediately. And the best advice is just, if you're in doubt, keep them out.
We've also had reports over the years of instances where in some cases they will literally begin work and then try and browbeat the householder or the occupant into paying on the basis, look, the work is done, you have to pay us. Now, in that instance, I'm sure the advice would be to call yourselves.
Of course, yeah, and that's quite a common occurrence, yeah. And more often than not, too, this may be somebody who lives alone, again, who there's very little backup there for them to stand up to these people, or somebody who's vulnerable. They're well aware, they know who to target. So our advice is, if somebody does come to your home, if you have hired their services and they're refusing to complete the work, or if you're feeling in fear of this person or people, contact Gardaí. There's no issue whatsoever, and we'll immediately call out to you.
Now, we know some of your colleagues in Galway have had some horrendous scenes to deal with over the past 24 hours. Here in Donegal, obviously, a road safety appeal was issued ahead of the Easter weekend. Thankfully, we don't have major tragedies to report on the roads in Donegal, but your colleagues were still busy out there over the past couple of days.
And definitely, if anybody was tuned into the TV or the radio stations over the weekend, they would have heard that there was a lot of tragedy and a lot of sad homes over the Easter weekend, unfortunately, as a result of fatalities on the roads. And we did issue a road safety appeal to all road users, as always, ahead of any bank holiday weekend, and last weekend was no different. So we're glad to say the vast majority of road users did take the general road safety message on board. But as always, there's a few who didn't. So Gardaí were out in the roads over the weekend conducting high visibility checkpoints, speed checks, and FCPNs or fines were issued for a range of road traffic related offences, speeding being the main one. But across the Donegal division between Friday and Monday, there were 8 arrests for drink driving related offences and 3 arrests for drug driving offences. So just the longer evenings now, the brighter weather, over the coming weeks and months, there will be a higher volume of traffic on the roads, people out holidaying and enjoying the good weather. And with this comes an increased risk of collisions. So we ask all road users, whether it's a bank holiday weekend or not, the advice remains the same. Please use roads responsibly. Drivers are always urged, slow down, keep your speed down. You don't have to, if you're on a 100-kilometre speed limit, you don't have to drive at 100 kilometres. Take all factors into consideration and drive at a safe speed. Wear your seatbelt. Make sure your passengers are wearing their seatbelts. You're responsible, for their safety when they're in your car. Never drive while under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Don't hold your mobile phone while driving, and think road safety at all times. Never ever take a risk on the roads.
Finally, Grania, the Garda recruitment competition, it opened on March 24th. It lasts until the end of this week. If people are still thinking of perhaps applying, what should they be doing now?
Yeah, well, actually, the closing date now to apply is coming quite close. 3 p.m. on the 14th of April. Candidates must apply. So if they log on to publicjobs.ie, you apply from there. And we had a recruitment stand the other day at Letterkenny Shopping Centre, and we had quite a bit of an interest. A lot of people came over and took the information leaflets, which was great to see. And we just ask anybody who's interested in applying to become a Garda, don't be afraid to come into your local Garda. Come into Letterkenny, Buncrana, Milford, Ballyshannon. They're open 24/7. Call in. There'll be no issue whatsoever. If you have any questions just in relation to the job, the training, come in, we'll talk to you. People can also view additional information at www.garda.ie in relation to the training and the job itself.
And as we say, that closing date is Friday afternoon. So if people are thinking of applying, it's time to really get the skates on now at this stage.
Get on to it at this stage, yeah, definitely.
Garda Grania Doherty, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning for that. Hopefully, if anyone wants to, respond to any of those, they can do so to the Garda station in question, to their local Garda station. We'll be getting all the details up, obviously, on our website, highlandradio.com. And you want to just repeat that, the confidential line as well, just in case people want to use that?
Yep, 1800 1800 666 111. And it's important to note as well, when you ring that number, I called it myself one day just to make sure I had my facts straight. But you're actually through to a recorded message when you ring that. Yeah. It's just leave your message after the beep. You don't have to leave your name, no further details about yourself. You can leave the information you want to leave, hang up. It's as simple as that, and it's totally confidential.
Garda Grania Doherty, thank you very much indeed.
No problem, Donal.
The newspapers are courtesy of Kelly Centra Mountain Top.
The Community Garda information slot is brought to you by Sheridan Security Systems, protecting what you value most. Call today and get your zero-wire alarm system from €299. Sheridan Security, 91-26025. Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Some people get up early every morning. But on the morning of May 6th, we want everyone to be up for the most important sunrise of the year. Whether it's your first time or 10th time, join Pieta and Electric Ireland for this year's Darkness into Light. On May 6th, everyone's welcome. Sign up, take part and raise much needed funds for suicide prevention at darknessintolight.ie.
Strictly Ballroom the Musical, the award-winning sensation from Baz Luhrmann, is waltzing to the Millennium Forum in a brand new Better Than Ever production from Monday 22nd to Saturday 27th of May. Directed and co-choreographed by Craig Revel-Howard and starring Strictly Come Dancing legend Kevin Clifton and Coronation Street's Faye Brooks. Book now at millenniumforum.co.uk.
Are you tired of unreliable and inefficient appliances? Upgrade to Bosch, the brand that delivers superior quality and performance. Plus, their advanced technologies and energy-efficient features will save you money on your utility bills. Choose Bosch and experience the difference for yourself. Speak to our expert team now at Irwin Expert Electrical, Letterkenny and Buncrana.
April is a time for wellness, so why not treat yourself at the award-winning V-Spa set within the confines of the 4-star Villa Rose Hotel Ballybuffet. As a sanctuary of relaxation, the V-Spa specialises in advanced skincare and facials together with chemical peels and microneedling. This April, the V-Spa have created a collection of spa packages that will leave you feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. View the spring spa packages and overnight escapes online today on villarose.ie.
It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. You're back. You're welcome back. We're halfway through the programme. It doesn't seem like we've been on for an hour and a half, but indeed we have. I want to read you an excerpt from a letter that we received recently. And it says, I'm writing to you in relation to my daughter being bullied in school this past 6 months. It needs to be stopped. It started with one girl. She's formed a group of 4. It's happening constantly, day in, day out. They've thrown glue in her hair, hitting against her while walking past her. They've hid her school books coming up to exams. They isolate her in class. If any other girl would stand and chat to my daughter, this bully would come over and drag her away, leaving my daughter standing on her own. It was a daily thing. If students had a trip down the country, they'd make sure that she would be on her own. They set up a Snapchat account so they could text negative comments and call her names, but put it in a different girl's name, claiming to be someone else in class. They would pull tables away from her, making her feel like she had a disease. In PE, they would leave her out in a team and tackle her deliberately. This has been going on every day. My daughter is very traumatised. That's just an excerpt from a letter that we received. Joined on the line by Jim Harding, who is the founder of the group Bullying for You. Jim, good morning.
Good morning, Colin.
Jim,
Donal, I beg your pardon, Donal.
Yes, indeed. Jim, you've heard that. That's just an excerpt from a letter that we received, and I'm sure that's the sort of thing that you've heard an awful lot of since you became involved in this particular area.
It is, Donal. Unfortunately, it is probably the number one sort of issue that arrives on our desk, where a parent feels that the school, and I would feel this in this case, that the school is failing in their duty of care to this child. This child is being traumatised, as it said in the letter. She's been isolated. She has been bullied continuously. And I receive this sort of inquiry quite a lot, where a parent says that they've been going to the school for 6 months, 18 months, 2 years, and nothing has happened to protect their child. What I would advise in this instance, Donal, to this parent, that they should get a copy of the school's anti-bullying policy, and they should make a formal complaint through the school's anti-bullying policy. The school can conveniently ignore phone calls, short meetings, somebody going up and saying, I feel my child is being bullied. But if it is done through the school's anti-bullying policy in writing, the school have to act and have to do something about it. I would, as the parent here, I would itemise every single interaction that they've had with the school, everything that has happened. I wouldn't care if it turned into a 20-page letter. I would also get a copy, screenshot of all these. Hopefully she kept a screenshot of these Snapchat messages and any of these kind of online things. Always keep a copy of them, their evidence. And I would supplement the complaint with all of this information. This really isn't good enough.
A lot of what's in this letter, and it would appear a lot of the bullying that does take place tends to be psychological. And from that point of view, it can at times perhaps be difficult to quantify the impact it's having. But I'm sure you, more than anyone, realise the psychological impact, the culmination of a lot of little things builds up to something that's quite psychologically harmful to a person. The problem sometimes can be actually proving that.
Completely. I mean, what this is doing is chipping away at this child, constantly just chipping away, undermining her. It will lead, unfortunately, as I think we can see in the letter, to anxiety. The child has to lock herself into a toilet cubicle at lunchtimes. It can have a very detrimental effect on her education, her future sort of outlook on things, and this needs to be tackled immediately. And how the school can sort of neglect, I mean, there was mention in the letter which I saw about teachers seeing activity on CCTV and on cameras where the child is being undermined and people pulling their desks away from her. I think it's the parent said it was as if she had a disease. This is all on CCTV. What? Who is responsible for this? I think the child is in TY. Who is responsible within this school for the TY students? And why is nothing being done about this? I think it's disgraceful. And I think from our experience in Bully For You, children in primary school, they know exactly who to go to. They know their interaction is with one teacher all the time. They know to go to sir or to miss or else to mum and dad. But as soon as the child moves into secondary school, they could have 10 subject teachers. There'll be career guidance counsellors, deputy principals, year heads, chaplains. There's a whole myriad of teaching staff. And the problem with children when they move into secondary school is they don't know who to go to. And secondly, they don't know what's going to happen. So as a result, the child suffers in silence, which is totally unacceptable in this day and age.
Earlier in the programme, by coincidence, because this is the week of teacher conferences, it happens to be Easter week when all the teacher conferences take place, we spoke to a local person who's high up in one of the teachers' unions, and they were talking about how difficult it is for teachers at the moment to do the work they have, plus all the other extracurricular admin work and everything else that teachers are finding themselves having to do. Are we in a situation where at the moment there is so much of a workload being handed on to teachers over and above their teaching that something like this almost inevitably is not going to get the attention it deserves because teachers are all being pulled 7 different ways at once?
Well, I mean, we all know the teachers are under massive pressure. But this is a different situation to maybe organising a school outing or a sports occasion. This child's future, I wouldn't say it's on the line, but her future is being undermined and chipped away at on a constant basis. And from my understanding of the letter, the school are aware, or certainly some individuals in the school are well aware of what's actually happening. And I would suggest that for a school like this, where maybe you've a constant rollover of teachers. They might see 7 or 8 different teachers a day. In a single teacher classroom situation, the teacher can identify that there is bullying behaviour going on. Whereas when they're coming in, maybe teachers coming in for a 40-minute period, they might see something, but they mightn't see it again later in the day because they're not going to be in that class. I think there should be some sort of a register, a logbook there, and if, say, the teacher in the first class and maths teacher comes in and sees a child being picked on or isolated, that they should go and put that into the relevant register or log for that particular classroom as a mandatory piece of reporting. And it's then, if a number of teachers are doing this and they're saying that pupil X is coming in from 5 or 6 different teachers, that the pupil X has been treated unfairly, is being isolated. This all adds up to a picture that where you have a number of different teachers coming in, that you're not going to get that picture. But there should be mandatory reporting of this sort of stuff. But my advice to parents in this situation is don't just go up and have a chat with the teacher, because you'll be going up and possibly, hopefully something will be done immediately, and this is certainly happening in most schools across the country. But in situations where it's not happening, immediately get a copy of the school's anti-bullying policy. It should be on the school's website. If not, phone the school, get onto the office, ask them to post you out a copy of the policy or go in and collect it, and then itemise everything that's happening and make the complaint through the policy, and let them know that you're making the complaint through the policy, and that will certainly focus their attention.
And you believe it should be formal?
I beg your pardon?
And you believe that complaint should be formal? It should be formally put through with an expectation that it's dealt with as per the policy and responded to as per the policy?
Oh, totally. And this should happen immediately, and the school should not be letting this situation drag on. What are they waiting for? This child's her present and her future is on the line here, and she needs support. Now, there was one piece in the parents' letter that I noticed where punishment was mentioned, and there certainly seems to be a ringleader and a circle around this ringleader. Our experience in Bully for You is that punishment as such does not work. If I get punished for picking on you, Donal, and then I get punished and I get, you know what I mean, I kept back in school or I miss events or whatever it is, that can harden the bully and make them determined to go back in again as soon as possible. What we find the best way of addressing this from the school's perspective is through restorative practice. Yeah. So restorative practice would be a lot of schools, the teaching staff are getting trained in this. So it will be a case of sitting down. Now, it's not always going to be appropriate, but I would have thought that this would be appropriate. Sitting down, letting the bully know, or the child engaged in bullying behaviour, the impact that her behaviour is having on the other child. And sometimes it can be a win-win situation because generally the child engaged in the bullying behaviour, there's something going wrong in their background. There's something wrong there that they are being so mean and so horrible to this child. So it can be an opportunity for somebody to say, well, you know, what's going on in your life? Why are you? And then something might come out, and then it can be a chance that the child with the bullying behaviour, it can be addressed. But she can also see the effect that she's having on the other child, and it gives the other child a chance to regain some of the power that has been taken from them.
If anyone wants to make contact with you, Jim, or contact Bullying for You, how can they do so?
So we've visited Donegal on many occasions, Donal, on invitation from schools in Donegal Town, Letterkenny. They can contact me at Jim at Bully, BULLY, the number 4, letter U.ie. That's Bully, number 4, letter U.ie. We've travelled to Donegal on many occasions, providing student workshops, primary, secondary level, teacher in service, and it definitely sounds like a teacher in service is required in this instance. It's just not acceptable for a child to be continuously treated in this way. The duty of care on behalf of the school towards this child is not reaching the minimum standard, I would think, in this case. So that's how we can be contacted, Donal. And if this parent wants to reach out to me, I'd be very happy to speak to her and provide some sort of support and guidance and some give her some chance to prioritise this within the school so that her child can overcome this horrific experience.
Thank you. That's Jim Harding there of Bully for You, BULLY, letter 4, capital U. Jim, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Donal.
That's Jim speaking to us there. A few comments coming in. Caller says, Gregory Campbell simply cannot provide inspiration for the young in the Cregan and Derry City, nor can Sinn Féin provide any inspiration. The caller makes claims that when an Irish language Gael school was being set up in Cregan many years ago, Sinn Féin effectively hijacked it and forced it to move to the Bogside. And this is one of the reasons they say the Good Friday Agreement has had so many difficulties in Cregan and in other communities. Another caller says, ask Gregory Campbell about the UDA and the UVF and drug dealers who have destroyed Northern Ireland with their criminal activities as well. Earlier we read a comment with regards to suicide in Northern Ireland and the fact that suicide figures in Northern Ireland since the Good Friday Agreement are larger, it's claimed, than the number of people who were actually killed during the Troubles. A caller says, Ray, suicide, the connection between suicide and parental alienation is well known anecdotally, yet it's been covered up by a lack of research by the organisations and government agencies that are addressing it. That's a claim there from a caller, and I suppose what it points to is the fact that we do need more research in this particular area. Birthday request in. Happy birthday to my sister Bridget Kelly in Glenswilly. Have a lovely day. And that is from Kelda. So happy birthday to you, Bridget. Just another one or two comments before we take a break. I was in Rossnowley yesterday, as were many portaloos were completely full with toilet roll. They'd reached their capacity. I don't know the situation throughout the county at other beaches. I wonder, can they be served daily over weekends, as they're obviously on hire? What's the long-term situation? It's not very tourist-friendly. I know certainly what it's like to be using a portaloo which has been a bit plugged up by toilet paper, etc. And all I will say is it is one thing for a man. It's, I suspect, an even more difficult thing for a woman because of the way we go. So I think it's probably easier for a man, and I have often been in a portaloo that I've been using and thought to myself, it must be very difficult for a woman. Now, I will always clean down the area around, and I will try as much as I can to use that little lever and clear as much as you can, but when they get clogged up, they get clogged up. That is an absolute case. Caller says, how long is it taking to renew the working family payment? I've been waiting now for 5 weeks. Question there perhaps for the Department of Social Protection. It's 10:44. Weather is next after these.
You may have heard others making claims, but there's only one number one, and it's official. The Kia Sportage is now Donegal's best-selling car in 2023. Call in today to iMotors Letterkenny or Malin, or visit imotors.ie to find out why the Kia Sportage is Donegal's best-selling car.
The CFC Interiors Dairy Stock Disposal Sale is now on. Due to overstock, an incredible £1.5 million worth of stock must go. Don't miss our highest ever discount on selected ranges across all departments. The Stock Disposal Sale at CFC Interiors Dairy, Cookstown and Abbey Centre. Sale now on.
Not sure where to start with your smart meter? Sign up to a Home Electric Plus smart meter price plan from Electric Ireland to see how much energy your appliances are actually using. Track your usage monthly, daily or even hourly, and get tips and advice on how to use less. It's a smart start to controlling your energy usage. To sign up, search Electric Ireland Home Electric Plus. Smart meter and online account required. Features available after 4 months. T's and C's apply. See electricireland.ie.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Discover Edinburgh this summer with Ryanair's 3 times weekly service. Stunning architecture, endless winding streets and an awe-inspiring castle. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
Well, Met Éireann are telling us this morning that change is on the way, and it's a change in the wrong direction, I'm sorry to say. After something of a bright start, it's going to keep turning cloudier with rain spreading northwards right across the region from about midday on. Heavy downpours in places this evening, becoming blustery with southerly winds increasing fresh to strong and gusty this afternoon, veering west in the evening with top temperatures of 7 to 9. Blustery again tonight with fresh southwest winds, possibly very windy earlier on. Rain at first tonight. It'll clear though with some clear spells developing in many areas. Heavy showers will then develop. Lowest overnight temperatures 0 to 3 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow it'll be dry in many areas during the morning, mostly cloudy with spells of rain in the afternoon. Heavy at times again with local downpours, becoming very windy with strong or very northwest winds developing across much of the region. Top temperatures tomorrow 6 to 9 degrees Celsius. Now let's talk about Murva Beach, one of the best beaches in Donegal. A Murva Beach Committee has been formed in partnership with Donegal County Council and Coillte on matters important to the area and its amenities, joined by the group's chairperson, Lorraine McCafferty. Lorraine, good morning to you.
Good morning, Donal. How are you? A pleasure to be on.
Very well indeed, and a pleasure to speak to you. Lorraine, what sort of issues do you foresee this group discussing, and who do you want to get involved?
Oh, Ben, thank you. So listen, I think the committee has 5 main focus areas. The general maintenance of the beach, the boardwalk, making sure it's clean, all of that. Erosion is also a very hot topic within the committee, addressing the issue of camper vans staying overnight during the summer. The forestry, there's a lot of overnight camping in the forestry. We want to just make sure, that the health and general maintenance of the forestry is upheld. And then lastly, we're looking to put a play area for kids somewhere in the vicinity of the beach, similar to what they have in Rossnowley. So they're the key sort of 4 or 5 areas that the committee's focused on.
And local people obviously will have a lot to contribute to this. They know the area better than anyone else, and they probably have a better vision of what the area can and should be.
Correct. that's why we're looking for local people, the Ballyshannon, Donegal Town, Lahey, Ballantrae area, to come and join us. We currently have about 6 people on the committee. We're looking to double that because the more the merrier. Each committee member would volunteer on what they want to focus on and work directly with the governing bodies, whether or not that's Donegal County Council or Culture, on that particular issue. So I think what our aim is to try to move a lot of these issues along in parallel and not take them one by one, so that we can kind of hit the ground running. There is a similar group, the Friends of Resnarla Beach. They were established back in 2017. So we're in constant contact with them to try to learn from them. Some of the things that they've come across in the last 4 or 5 years and how they've dealt with it. So listen, it's a challenge, but I think it's one that's for the good of the community, and it's the good of the beach, and it's a resource we really should look after.
Important too, from your point of view, that you've got Donegal County Council on board in this, you've got Culture on board in this, that these agencies are working together with you, and when you have the local community inputting to those agencies' policies, that can only be a good thing.
Correct. And, we've already had one very productive meeting with them. They were really open and delighted to have a committee in Merva. There wasn't such a committee already in establishment. So this is new for them, and they like having point people to work on these issues with. Some of these are bigger issues than others, and it'll take time. And obviously there's some legislative stuff that, obviously keeps us within certain parameters of what we want to do. But, overall, it's very much a partnership, and at least that's what the committee took away from the very first meeting.
You have, as you say, a number of people involved. What sort of numbers are you hoping to get? Because I suppose the more people that get involved, the more people that engage, the more perspectives you have, the more different visions you have, and the more chance you have of getting, some perspectives and some good ideas that can maybe make some real breakthroughs. That's right. So we have 6 at the minute. We're looking, listen, nobody will be turned away. I just think because, to your point, whether or not it's parents that's on the committee, then they have the angle on what the kids need down there. If we have more of the older folks, then, they're able to give us in the perspective of what they'd like to see down there. Obviously, the boardwalk was added a couple of years ago, and I think that was a great addition for the older folks and people with strollers to kind of get down onto the beach. So we're open to not alone members, but also volunteers. I quickly mentioned we're having our first clean-up at the beach on April 15th, which is this Saturday coming. So obviously the more volunteers there to help us with that clean-up in partnership with Donegal County Council, the better. But yeah, we can be reached on our Facebook page. We're known as the Friends of Merva Beach group. So if you want to send a message there, if you're thinking of either volunteering or joining the committee, that's where you'll find us. And we monitor that all the time, and so we'll get back to you and set up. We're going to have our next committee meeting within the next 2 weeks. So if anybody wants to join, you're not too far behind. We've only had one meeting with Donegal County Council and Culture so far, so we're really very much at the infancy stage. So please, anybody who is interested in joining us, send us a note and be part of it. And we know there are initiatives out there like Antashka's Clean Coasts and so on and so forth that will get very much behind cleanups like that, and I'm sure you're working in conjunction with them as well to make sure that the best possible outcome comes out of these initiatives. Yes, that's right. So we've applied to Antashka for our grant that'll cover all the cleaning equipment and everything that's needed for, and Donegal County Council has agreed to come and lift up all the rubbish after we do our cleans. We're going to hopefully do a clean the second Saturday of every month, if that works for folks. So so if we get the grant, we'll have the facilities, and we'll have everything that goes along with that for people to come along. And listen, we want it to be a fun day as well. Resnarla has been, Friends of Resnarla have been doing this for a number of years now, and they always get a good old group. So I think it'll take us a while to build up our presence and for people to find out about it. But there is a lot of interest in people just wanting, to be, to help. So come along on next Saturday, the Saturday coming, the 15th, between 10 and 12, and get to know everybody and hear what we're doing. Obviously, the hope would be that beach cleanups will no longer be necessary because, I mean, you would hope that people using the beach would treat it with the respect they deserve. And I'm sure there's part of your work is going to be having information, signage and so on and so forth increased to try and exhort people not to be leaving any rubbish behind. And we had a conversation earlier on in the show with Councillor Micheál Cullum from West Donegal about an incident that happened at Andrage there near the airport at Carrickfinn and you know, how that's been dealt with and issues there. But you would ultimately hope that people would treat the beach with the respect it deserves. And with that in mind, I'm sure, as well as working with the council in Coillte, you'll be working with the tourism authorities as well, because Murva, you know, it's a popular destination, not necessarily drawing as many people as Rosnowla, but it certainly does draw its visitors, and I'm sure they're welcome. But you want to make sure that when those visitors come, they come in a way that respects the beach and that respects the community that they're visiting.
That's right. Listen, I do think, you know, it's not a huge problem, but like not everybody is 100% in compliance. So there always is that residual amount that's left. We also have a problem with just debris washing up on the beach, right, which is obviously not one individual's problem. But so there is a cleanup, not alone from residual stuff that's left over from people visiting the beach, but also from what comes out of the ocean. You often see, you know, various, and they can be quite large, that would be deposited on the beach after the tide goes out. So, you know, we'll also focus on that. But yeah, listen, you know, you're right. There's quite a lot of debris actually left in the forestry. I think that is actually a bigger problem than the beach itself. And not unless you use a forestry, you actually would never see it. But, you know, we have problems with people just walking off and leaving 3 or 4 tents there. You know, they've cooked overnight. We obviously, you know, there's bylaws on the beach down in Murva, as I assume they are in most forestry areas. You can't actually enter the forestry without a license or a permit, for which you have to have insurance. So, you know, obviously people are not going to that level of detail in order to camp overnight, but what they are doing is they're leaving a lot of rubbish behind, and that's what we're working with Coillte on, to just kind of figure out how do we kind of monitor that more closely now as we come into the summer season.
As you say, Lorraine, you're on Facebook, so if people want to make contact, they can look up Friends of Murva Beach on Facebook, make contact there, or come down to meet you, as you say, on Saturday morning between 10 and 12. And if they want to get involved in the committee, they'll be welcomed with open arms. If they just want to volunteer, they'll be welcomed there as well.
Absolutely. We're there. We have a presence on Facebook. We're getting a lot of traction, which is great. There's a lot of people, you know, from far away that are happy to, you know, share our message and share our Facebook to make sure that, you know, back home and, you know, that the beach is looked after and that the amenities we have out there, it's sort of fit for purpose. You know, I go back to the playground area. You know, Rosnowla has the most beautiful playground area that they put up during COVID, actually, and we're looking to do something similar for the kids, you know, down in Murva as well. But that'll take time. It'll take funding. But yeah, that's correct. We can be reached on the Facebook page.
Lorraine, we wish you all the best with it, and it's always great to see a community getting involved in something like this and laying down a claim to this, because as well as being a facility for visitors, it is a facility for you and the local community as well. Lorraine McCafferty, Chair of the Friends of Murva Beach, thank you indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. A few of your comments before we go to news at 11. We were speaking earlier to Jim about bullying, and a caller asks, why is bullying not a matter for the Gardaí? Is it not a criminal matter? And I suppose the answer to that really is you would like to get it resolved in the school rather than to be calling Gardaí in. I mean, obviously, calling of Gardaí may be a last resort, but I think it would not be a first resort. Another caller says, bullying is rife, not just in schools. I had a terrible time at work with a bully who was very tech savvy, was using my accounts to send people messages claiming to be from me. Bullies do need to be dealt with. Another caller says, I had a terrible time with my daughter who was being bullied. She ended up leaving and going to Australia to get away from it all. People don't understand the damage that words can do. Now, I'm just going to leave that one there because that tells a story that needs no amplification or addition to. I'll read that comment again. My daughter was being bullied. She ended up leaving and going to Australia to get away from it all. Another caller says there is no excuse in this day and age for the school not dealing with the issue. If these schools were named and shamed on social media, there'd be an immediate change of attitude. Will we wait until the bullying leaves this child in worse place, asks a caller. Again, the naming and shaming, yeah, it would be, I think, a last resort rather than a first resort, and hopefully what will happen is that this can be dealt with through the school, and the student and the family can reach a resolution, and that we will see resolution to this one. We await to see what happens. It's approaching a minute and a half to 11. We're going to take a short break. As we say, news headlines coming up after this.
The world awaits you. Make that dream your next adventure. Cruise the Caribbean. Sail from Crete to Corsica. Soak in Santorini sunsets. Dine on the shores of the Indian Ocean. Stroll through cobbled streets for hidden gems, or bring the little ones to a magical wonderland. Trust the award-winning Atlantic Travel to guide your next adventure. Step through our doorway to the world. Atlantic Travel, Letterkenny.
Savings to put a spring in your step. Fly with Loganair from Donegal to Glasgow Airport and save up to 15% during our sale now on. With more destinations available from City of Derry Airport too.
Fly with me. I want to take you there.
Book by the 11th of April at loganair.co.uk. Travel from the 29th of April. Subject to availability, exclusions apply. Loganair. For all the times.
Broadcasting throughout the Northwest and across the world online. This is Highland Radio.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's 11 o'clock, time for headlines, and we say good morning to Donna Marie Doherty.
Thanks, Donal. Good morning. Gardaí are investigating a criminal damage incident that occurred in the area of the Lisson Avenue, Buncrana at approximately 3 a.m. on Tuesday morning last. It was reported a resident at the property heard a few loud bangs. Following morning, it was discovered an upstairs window had been cracked, and it's believed it may have been caused by stones. Gardaí are appealing for information on the incident. Meanwhile, 2 investigations in relation to thefts have been launched in the past week, which Gardaí are seeking information for. The first occurred in Ardra, where a parked car at the Neck Ardra between 5 p.m. on Thursday and 8 a.m. on Friday had 4 alloys stolen. The second incident occurred in Milford, where 40 sheep have been taken from a mountain area at Largy Bracklam Colmkill. The sheep mainly consist of ewes, some of which are in lamb. It is believed that the sheep were stolen between March 12th and April 2nd. Anyone who believes they may have any information in relation to either incident are asked to contact Gardaí. A Donegal councillor is condemning a campfire which was left unattended while still alight near Donegal Airport. The fire, which can be seen in a video doing the rounds on social media, was compiled of a circle of rocks and burned an array of material including plastic bottles. Speaking on this morning's 9 till noon show, Councillor Michael Colin McGilla Asbog called the act foolish and disrespectful. Sky News Australia has left TikTok because of security concerns around its Chinese owners. Its digital editor Jack Houghton said TikTok is a spy network masquerading as a social media platform. Several Western governments and organisations have already banned the app on their devices. Nationally today, there are 495 people waiting for beds in hospitals this morning. 369 patients are in emergency departments, while 126 are in wards. That's according to INMO figures released this morning. 28 are on trolleys in Letterkenny University Hospital, 7 in the emergency department and 19 in wards elsewhere. The number has reduced from figures last week, when the hospital was the 4th most overcrowded in the country. That's all for now. We'll be back again with more news headlines at 12 o'clock. Until then, good afternoon.
Play Rugby sticker promotion is kicking off again. Collect official Irish rugby stickers every time you spend €25 in Aldi. Help fill your local primary school's poster for a chance to win €50,000 to upgrade the school's playing facilities. And scan your sticker for a chance to win your weekly shop. Now that's a win-win situation. Start collecting now. Aldi, official fresh food partner of the IRFU. Details at aldi.ie/play rugby. Promotion runs until April 23rd.
And welcome back to the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. Now, we're joined on the line by John, who was on holiday in the south of England over Easter. One of the highlights of the holiday was going to be a trip to see Southampton in St Mary's Park, unless I'm very much mistaken, but things didn't pan out the way John and the family wanted them to. John, good morning. John, a bad experience for the family. Tell us what happened.
It was disappointing. What happened was we had a family holiday booked. It was actually booked 3 years ago and it was cancelled through COVID, so it was back on this Easter. So we had it off last Tuesday and just back in Belfast City Airport now as we speak. We were away for a week and we had a great time. But a couple of weeks, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, we said, God, we'll see if we can get a match in when we're over there. Because we were closer to Bournemouth than Southampton, so we looked at Bournemouth, but they were playing away that weekend. But Southampton were at home, and they happened to be at home to Man City, which we thought, oh, great, we'll see all the stars of the Man City team. I'm actually a Man United fan, and the son's a Man United fan. One of them says he's a Man City fan, but he's only 5 years of age. The other boy doesn't know, with my wife, so we rang up the South.
And I'm afraid we appear to have lost the connection with John there. It wasn't the best of lines. As John said, he's actually in Belfast City Airport. I think we've just lost that connection if Caroline wants to try and get John back to us. But the basic story is that as John said, the 5-year-old had been wearing a Man City jersey and they were wearing it for a photo earlier. Now, apparently that was seen on camera. As I read it, the family actually covered the Man City jersey. We're going to try line 2 and just see if we have John back. John, good morning.
Good morning, Donal. Have you got me there?
Yeah, we have you indeed. Hopefully that's a slightly better line. We just lost the connection there. John, you were telling us your 5-year-old was wearing a Man City jersey earlier and had taken a photograph, but was then refused admittance to the ground, even though the actual jersey at that point had been covered up.
That's right. Donal, as I say, we got up to Southampton earlier on in the afternoon. The game was to 5:30, so we were a couple of hours around Southampton shopping and the Lego store, and the boys were happy, and loads of Man City fans walking around, loads of Southampton fans walking around. Great atmosphere, no sign of trouble. Just a normal Saturday, lovely weather. As I say, we walked out the stadium, maybe a mile from the city centre. Man City fans walking down, Southampton fans walking down. Got outside St Mary's anyway. My wife decided she wanted to take a picture of the boys, so she got the youngest boy, the 5-year-old, to take off his hoodie, when he had the Man City jersey. We took a photograph, no problem. But then one of the stewards came over and asked to see her tickets, and she said, "Oh, you're in the home end?" And we said, "Yeah." And she says, "Well, you can't be wearing." Well, we said, "We know that." And in fairness, I'm not that naive to walk into the home section with a Man City jersey. We were going to cover them up, and we covered them up. But by the time we walked around to our entrance into the exit, I see another security lady outside, and she was eyeing us up as we walked up to the turnstiles, Donal, and she just came over and says, "Can I see your tickets?" And she's seen the tickets. She says, "You've been spotted on camera. You're that was it." And we pleaded with her and tried our best, but no, she said, "Club policy, that's it." And I said, "God, we're not Man City fans. The 5-year-old has a Man City jersey on him. It's covered up now. He's a hoodie on. He's a coat over the top of it. We're going to go in." I warned them, to behave themselves and not to be shouting and going for Man City, because you don't do that. But
yeah,
no, it was no good, Donal. That was it, no one. And the boys, there was tears everywhere, and big disappointment. But I was chatting to Caroline earlier. I had a tweet up about it afterwards of the photograph of us, but I didn't get much sympathy on Twitter, I can tell you that anyway, Donal, because it's just not the done thing to do in English football grounds.
Yeah,
even to have it covered up.
See, I can see, I can kind of understand the policy. Now, you get to the point where you say, yeah, it's a policy, because if they think there is any risk that someone is going to expose an opposing jersey in the other side's end, and we know what problems they've had in English soccer over the years. Thankfully, not an awful lot of it in recent years, but we all know the history. Now, I suppose they have to say policy is policy. Your story, certainly no one is going to accuse a 5-year-old of stirring up trouble. But then again, I suppose, is the question going to be, is a 5-year-old innocently going to act like a 5-year-old and pull up the hoodie or shout something if I recall, the scoreline did go very much in Man City's favour, if I recall the score correctly.
I said there was 4-1.
Yeah,
right,
that's what I thought. I was just trying to remember
and
much of the day.
Maybe, and maybe, it was, maybe we were naive even to take the photograph outside the stadium. I think if we had to stay covered up, no one would have seen us, and we would have got in okay, we would have watched the match and everything, but it's maybe just a lesson,
Was there any...
I'm a more of a GA man.
Yeah, and people will probably recognise you, John, as we speak. John, in terms of, was there even any, look, we'll take the jersey off and put it into a bag or something, or, we'll just make sure he's not actually wearing it going in. Was that offered as a potential?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. We were identified, the whole lot of us, as Man City fans. Once we've seen him with the Man City jersey outside at the far side of the stadium before we went even around to get in. So that was it. No, we were spotted when the lady came up to us. In fairness, the security lady, the steward. But by the time we got around to the turnstile where we were entered, the others said, you've been spotted on camera, you're Man City fans, you're not getting into the home end, and that's it. And I said, listen, we're here on holidays, we're from Ireland. Couldn't give a damn who was the match. Yeah. Don't know if we get into was it. We're tourists. All right, the young fella definitely had a Man City, but it was covered up at that stage, so no one would have seen it.
And there was
well
no
warned, and
there was no chance of getting tickets for the away end. I suppose they don't sell tickets for the away end actually at the stadium. They're all done through the other team, and
it seems to be there's no chance of that there at that stage. Now, in fairness, there is a Damien Doherty from Letterkenny's over in Southampton a long time, and Damien's he's a season ticket holder there, and he might have he's good connections. And I rang Damien straight away. This was about 5:10, and he was away on holidays at the time, but he made a few phone calls, and he rang me back maybe it's just well into the first half, and said that he had got 2 tickets at that stage for me. But like that, we were in the car, and we were on the way back to the house at that stage, Greg. So, Donal, it was too late. But fair play to Dotsy Doherty there. He did try to pull me out at the last minute, but I know it was getting too messy at that stage. Probably wouldn't have let us in anyway once even the seen us coming back.
Yeah. Oh, it's a salutary tale and a cautionary tale, John. I'm really sorry you had that. That experience, and hopefully at some point you'll get to go to a match and you get to bring him to a match again in the future. But I know certainly you can ill afford to be losing that amount of money, and the disappointment and tears, as you say, is going to be real.
At that stage, Donal, wasn't about the money. It was about the disappointment of the kids not getting in. That was the big thing at that stage. They were looking forward to it so much. But as I said, it wasn't the holiday. Thankfully, wasn't booked or organised around just going to the match. That was kind of an afterthought, but it was a nice surprise for them, and they were looking forward to it, So, listen, naive, and we'll learn for the next time. Hopefully, will not be caught out again.
Yeah, John. Listen, thanks indeed for the call. We wish you well. Hope that it was a good holiday. This disappointment notwithstanding, and have a safe journey home from Belfast.
Thanks, Donal. Catch you later.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
John, you take care. Thank you. That's John there speaking to us from Belfast. And I suppose you have to be so careful. And I can understand that security in somewhere like St Mary's, a football ground like that, they do have to be careful. And I suppose they're going to have to adopt a policy that says you take no risks whatsoever. And sadly, John and his families were victims of that policy. We're going to take a short break. Back in a moment when we're speaking about navigating the Irish property market.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
Take It to the Limit is a celebration of the Eagles by Johnny Brady, Simon Casey, Nigel Connell and the Sheeran family. You can hear Take It to the Limit at the Millennium Forum Derry on Saturday, April 15th. Tickets from £28.50. Now on sale from the theatre box office or online from www.takeittothelimit.ie.
Easter sale now on. Evolve Clothing Superstore. 2 floors of men's essential styles and fashions in casual wear, streetwear, formal wear and suiting. Plus over 200 styles of footwear. Easter sale now on. Evolve Clothing, Letterkenny Retail Park.
Join me, Marty Friel, every Friday night from 8 for Rockin' Hits on Highland Radio in association with Arena 7, where you can enjoy dinner and drinks in the Woodbury Grill Bar and Restaurant before bowling in Arena 7's state-of-the-art lanes. See arena7.ie.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
It's 13 minutes past 11 o'clock. I want to introduce you to a book that's just been published. If you're watching online, you can possibly see it in my hand. It's called How to Buy a Home in Ireland, from the creator of Crazy House Prices. That's Crazy House Prices, the book, by the way, not the creator of Crazy House Prices. It took a whole economic situation to create that. But Kieran Mulqueen is the author, and Kieran joins us on Zoom. Kieran, a very good morning to you.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure, Kieran. And I suppose now more than ever, this book is important, because people are going to be looking at the property market. They're going to be asking, should I buy? Can I afford to buy? Even if I can get a mortgage, is this the right time to be buying? This book is going to help them to navigate that minefield.
Yeah, I guess that the whole idea of the book was kind of putting 3 years of conversations and learning and all that into a really kind of handy guide that people can refer back to, no matter what stage they're at, whether that's, before they've even started saving, or maybe they're currently bidding on houses or whatever. So it kind of just gives you a step-by-step guide as to what to do. Now, in terms of if now is the right time to buy or not, I don't have a crystal ball for that, but I can't, to be honest, with the way interest rates are at the moment and increasing lack of supply, if I could find something that I could afford and that I love and I plan on staying in for 10, 15 years, I'd be just going for it. I wouldn't be trying to speculate on a drop in prices or anything.
Now, my wife and I, we have 2 young adult children who live with us at the moment, and both are sort of talking about at some point aspiring to owning a house, but not quite yet. And we were talking interest rates around the tea table one night, and their eyebrows were raised when I told them that when we started initially looking at buying a house in late 1990, early 1991, interest rates were 14%. And when we bought in 1993, interest rates were about 8.5%. So it was a very different situation back then. Now, that said, the prices weren't as crazy as they are now. And as the creator of these Crazy House Prices social media account, you know all about how the prices have gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was interest rate relief back then as well. And
there was,
yes. 14% on 30,000 is a lot better than 4% on 400,000. So well, unfortunately, we're at the wrong end of it nowadays. But I can't see them going down anytime soon. But I know experts are better people to listen to on that than I. I guess the book is more just about, actually guiding you through what you need to do, the research, all that. There's some really good chapters in there, especially the research one gives you a lot of free websites you can use that can give you so much information about whatever home you're looking at.
In terms of the rent versus mortgage argument, are we getting to the point where it's actually, you so often hear rent is dead money, you should have a mortgage, because at least with a mortgage after whatever it is, 25, 30 plus years even in some cases, you'll actually have a house to show for it. Are we getting to the point now where rents are so high that a mortgage actually does make more financial sense if you can afford, obviously, the deposit and if you can afford to enter the market?
Absolutely, yeah. I remember years ago, I was renting a 3-bed on a corner site in a really good spot in Dublin, and it was $1,050 a month. I think that same home now would be probably around 4,000 a month. So it's a no-brainer, I think, really, for people if they can find somewhere that and get a mortgage. That's the hard part, and often paying the mortgage is the easy part compared to paying 3 or 4 times that in rent.
I mean, for people who are considering buying at some point in the future, I suppose the advice is save, try and get as much as you can together for that deposit, for your furniture, for whatever you're going to need to actually move into a house, because it's not just enough to get a mortgage. Obviously, once you've got a mortgage, even if you get a mortgage approved, you're going to have found the deposit, and you're going to face an awful lot of charges, be it in terms of stamp duty, be it in terms of solicitors' fees. There's an awful lot of, we won't say hidden costs, because you know they're there, but you don't necessarily think about them when you're in the initial planning stages, and people suddenly find, oh, I need $1,000 for this, I need $2,000 for that, and suddenly they find, oh sugar, I am $5,000 short.
Absolutely. I have a whole chapter in the book called Extra Costs. So as you said, they're not hidden costs, they're just extra costs. So everybody needs 10% deposit minimum. So I always tell people to aim for around about 12 or 13%, and that will give you enough then to cover solicitors' fees, your surveyors, even moving fees if you have to do that. So there's a whole chapter on that there where I kind of run through the average costs for each bit, like your surveyors and your mortgage protection, your home insurance, alarms, all that kind of stuff.
Obviously in Donegal and in some other counties, Mayo in particular, but Sligo and other counties across the country as well, we have that added complication now of defective blocks and deleterious materials. And there's the whole question mark, even if there is a very good looking house or apartment or whatever on the market in Donegal, there's going to be an element of caveat emptor there, because the question is going to be, where do the blocks come from? Are the blocks compromised? Are there going to be issues with that house or that apartment down the line? So from that point of view, an awful lot of research, an awful lot of very careful consideration necessary, because ultimately I suppose the key phrase there is going to be caveat emptor, buyer beware.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's something I've posted about on my page a lot before. I get a lot of messages from people up in Donegal and as you said, in Sligo and Mayo and places that are impacted by those defects, and it's just a disgrace what they're being put through. And then especially as well for potential home buyers who are looking around, you might see something that looks like really good value, and then all of a sudden you start, the alarm bells start ringing. So yeah, as you mentioned there, you just need to do your research. And I think maybe local knowledge as well would be really helpful on that, if you can kind of figure out if you know anyone around there. Or local knowledge tends to be quite good when it comes to where the blocks came from and things like that. It's probably not something you'll find on an open forum online.
Would the advice be to people, look, if there isn't a engineer's report available that you're satisfied with, to, if they're serious about the house, to commission their own engineer's report, bearing in mind that in itself is potentially going to cost four figures?
Yeah, absolutely. And in my opinion, before a home should be allowed, even be advertised for sale, all of that should be done by the vendor, by the seller. Whether it's probate, whether it's engineers' reports, I think that's a change that could be made to the system here in Ireland when it comes to buying a home, is that the home should be legally ready to hand over the next day, in my opinion. It would save a whole lot of hassle, a whole lot of stress and a whole lot of money with people getting surveys done and then the sale falling through, and then the next party come to buy it and they're getting the same survey done and that falls. It's just, there are just so many things that could be fixed with the whole process here, to be honest. So I think they should be legally ready to hand over before they're even allowed to be advertised for sale. But unfortunately, we're not at that stage.
So potential changes in the law should be considered then at government level, because really what you're saying there, it would suggest that, and it's one thing to say what should be done and maybe what morally should be done and what's the ethical and right thing to do. But the real question is, what's the legal thing to do? And that may actually require legislation in Dáil Éireann. And is there any hint you're getting from your posters and your sources that that's an area that Darragh O'Brien is thinking about even?
No, I think they've so many other fires to try and put out at the moment. That the speeding up the process is probably not on their radar. And I've spoken to Darragh a good few times, and it is something I bring up. I have a whole chapter on changes that I think could improve the whole setup. And it's not like, they're not original ideas. Some of them are, but most of them aren't original ideas for me. It's just borrowed from other countries where you can't. So if you go sale agreed, you can't pull out without a valid reason. Whereas here, sale agreed is essentially just a handshake, and you're not guaranteed anything. So there are some changes I think we could borrow from other countries. There are some other ideas I have in there as well, but fortunately, no, I don't see things changing anytime soon. And
that's something else I presume you have to warn people of as well, because very often you'll hear people say, oh yeah, we have the house bought, we're planning to move in May, and then they make arrangements to move in May, and then suddenly find, the sellers have a problem with their new place, or they have a problem getting a mortgage for the new place, or something has happened and they now need to stay there until August, and suddenly you may have found yourself giving notice to quit your rental property in May because you anticipated moving into a new house, and then that's all fallen through. And, you know, we've all heard so many stories along those lines of deals that were, absolutely, will be in by May, and they're looking to be in by Christmas.
Absolutely. And there's, I would always say to people, don't do anything until you've signed contracts, because until then, anything can happen, really. Like, there was a story I posted a couple of weeks ago about an estate in Ballinrobe in Mayo, and there were 8 families that had gone sale agreed and were ready to sign contracts on homes the next day. And a lot of them had given notice, that were in rentals, had given notice to leave because they were due to sign contracts the next day. And then all of a sudden, the developer has sold all of the homes in the estate to a single buyer, so an investor or the state, we don't know yet. But for those people, that's an absolute disaster. That's your worst nightmare, really, when it comes to anything about buying a home, because they're essentially homeless now with nowhere to go, unless they can rely on family, and they could be looking another year and a half to try and find something else. So there are just so many things that I think could be fixed and are easy fixes that would kind of solve a lot of these problems.
In terms of preparing for the mortgage application, and I suppose the first thing anyone's going to have to do when they're considering buying a home, the first thing you're going to have to do is try and make sure you have the money. One of the things we're told now is that if you put in a mortgage application, you know, your bank account's going to be forensically examined. And I've even heard suggestions, someone saying, look, don't ever join an online betting company or something, or don't do bets online, or don't bet on the Grand National online, because if there's transactions like that on your bank account, a potential mortgage vendor is going to look at that and question you about it. Is that actually the case?
Yeah, the betting thing is, you know, I personally wouldn't be going near any gambling websites if I was within 6 months to a year of looking to get a mortgage. If you're interested in that kind of thing, take out cash and do it in the shop. Don't do it on a card, and don't do it online. That would be my advice. And banks aren't overly strict. You know, they want you to be able to live your own life, and your accounts don't need to be, you know, living just off rice and vegetables. But you need to be able to show that you can support your current lifestyle. But the gambling thing, I would say, is a no-no. I guess the way a lender looks at it is, if they're willing to gamble with their own money, they'll definitely be willing to gamble with ours. So it wouldn't be something I would advise anyway. Definitely not within 6 months to a year out.
So as you say, you know, the advice to people would be, look, whatever you think the guide price is going to be on the house, if you're anticipating spending, we'll say for the sake of argument, 200,000. Now in Donegal, you'll get a reasonably good house for €200,000. Sorry for those who may be listening in Dublin, but that's the reality. I mean, you know, and we'll just take 200,000 as a reasonable price for a 3-bedroom semi in, say, a town like Letterkenny or Ballybofey, Buncrana or whatever. So you'd be advising people, you know, try to make sure you have 12-13%, which effectively you're talking, look, try to have maybe 24-25 grand in savings, which is no mean achievement, which is no mean feat in itself. And I mean, you know, it's going to be difficult getting 25 grand together, let's be honest, even to have that as your deposit and your money for those extra costs. Once that's done, in terms of shopping around in the mortgage market, I mean, are there deals there, or, because you hear so often, everyone follows everyone else and one mortgage is pretty much the same as another, and much as some financial institutions will you know, advertise that they're so different to everybody else, are there deals out there, or is one mortgage vendor much the same as another in terms of the rates, in terms of the T's and C's?
They're all kind of they're all increasing their rates at different times, and some will have better rates than others. Some might be easier to deal with than others. My advice especially if somebody's a first-time buyer, would just be go to a broker. I think the brokers are really handy because they're usually free. You know, they usually get their fee from the bank or the lender, and they will kind of know the market a lot better than you will, or than I would, because the market is always changing and rates are always changing. So I would always advise people to go to a broker. Use somebody that comes recommended, that's from somebody you know has used themselves, and ask. And when you're talking to the broker, ask them, you know, what their terms are. Some will charge a fee, most don't, and they will tend to know which lender will suit your application best. And the lowest rate isn't always the best one. Sometimes some rates are a little bit higher, but they might give you cash back that makes it more worthwhile, or sometimes the rate is lower and they give you cash back, but it's not worthwhile in the long run. So you need to do your figures on that. And that's, I think, where a broker comes in. And it's just something I'd recommend, especially if it's your first time getting a mortgage. But you can do some comparisons yourself on ccpc.ie, and I have a whole chapter on that in the book as well, in terms of whether to go direct to the lender or whether to use a broker, and where you can go to do price comparisons or interest rate comparisons and all that.
The other question then becomes, do you go fixed rate or do you go variable rate? And I suppose that's going to change depending on what deals are on the cards. Again, the broker perhaps the best person to get advice on that, or would you suggest even going to a financial advisor on that?
Yeah, anybody who is a kind of qualified financial advisor would be best to talk to about whether you go fixed or variable. It's kind of beyond my abilities, but yeah, definitely get professional advice. A broker will help with that as well. Or if you wanted to go a step further, you could definitely talk to a qualified financial advisor.
Ciarán Mulqueen is the author. The book is How to Buy a Home in Ireland, and it is one which anyone who is considering buying would do an awful lot worse than actually picking up a copy of this and making their first act to sit down, have a good read and just get their own head together. Ciarán, pleasure talking to you. Thanks indeed.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that. Thank you indeed, Ciarán. That's Ciarán there. And the book, as we say, How to Buy a Home in Ireland. It's published by Kavanagh. It's by Hatchet Books, and it's, as they say, available in all good bookshops. Now, it's 29 minutes past 11. Going to take a short break. Back after these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Shop LK at Brian McCormick Sports and Leisure, Main Street, Letterkenny. New, fresh colours in women's sportswear from Nike and Under Armour. Get that new look with some bright colours. Quarter zips with t-shirts and fitness bottoms. Match it up with some new arrivals in our footwear for women. Brooks, Hoka and On Running gives you a unique comfort sensation. View our new arrivals. Click on bmcsports.ie for your free delivery.
Shrink your bill at Dunnes Stores this bank holiday weekend with 20% off wine and champagne. Pop a can of Pringles, now half price. Or stock the fridge with 20 and 24 can packs of Coca-Cola, Diet Coke and Coke Zero. Just €12 each. Then save at the till with our 5 off 25 grocery vouchers. Dunnes Stores, always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Voucher can be used on next in-store grocery shop of €25 or more. Voucher excludes alcohol. Please drink sensibly.
Visit the Inishowen Co-op Home Build event at the Inishowen Gateway Hotel Buncrana on Saturday, April 15th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Meet the suppliers for expert advice on all your home build needs. Micah support available on the day. See Facebook for more details.
It's the 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. It's Donal Kavanagh with you until 12 midday, which is pretty much half an hour away. Just 30 minutes left on the programme this morning. If you want to make contact, you can text us on 086 60 25,000. That number is good for WhatsApp messages as well. You can also call us, of course, 074 91 25,000, 00353 74 91 25,000. If you're outside of the dialing area, we have Niamh and Caroline taking your calls this morning. Just some of your comments that have been coming through. Caller says, in relation to bullying, I feel as though there should be a volunteer always at hand in the school, not a teacher as such, but perhaps a local volunteer to help educate and advise children on the dangers of bullying. I've witnessed firsthand this bullying leading into workplace and adult life. It needs to stop now and sooner rather than later, so says a caller. So sorry to hear, another caller says, that this girl is suffering at the hands of others in school or class. Some schools don't want to hear of bullying, but there's a responsibility that rests with the school teachers and the board. Time is of the essence here. Imagine this was your child bravely enduring unacceptability. They have a duty of care. Please help settle this soon. And a nice message, thanks to Martina and Davy from the Tavern Bar in Kilclooney, Portnew, for the box of toys they left at the seafront in Nairn for children to use at the beach. That's from the local Tidy Towns Committee. Now, let's talk road safety. The Road Safety Authority have received 180 complaints every month about driving tests. 2,205 complaints in 12 months, when a particularly high number were lodged in August, 297. One driver claimed they were the victim of partial and very racist treatment by a tester, claiming they'd been prejudged because of their ethnicity. Shane O'Donoghue is the editor of CompleteCar.ie. Shane, good morning.
Good morning, Donal.
Shane, how big a problem is it that we have up to 180 complaints a month about driving tests on average each year? Does that point to a problem?
I think it's worth investigating, but when you look into the detail from the RSA, I mean, it is worth pointing out that is just over 1% of the total number of people tested. And I'd also assume that they only get complaints from people who failed their tests. So, most of those presumably are justifiable fails. People will be disgruntled, will be disappointed, and that breeds a situation where people are going to feel the need to complain. Now, I'm not saying that the complaints that we're talking about aren't justified in any way, but I think they need to be taken in context in that way, I guess. I suspect that most of those complaints, or almost none of those complaints, are from people that have passed the test. The RSA does say that it investigates each and every one of them before it replies to the complainant. So it's not that it's ignoring the problem. It has actually released these figures.
Obviously, the complaint about alleged racism is a very serious one, and one would certainly hope that complaint would be taken seriously. That does appear to be the exception rather than the rule, though. There's no suggestion that is an ingrained problem as such.
No, I agree with you on that. It does appear to be an isolated case, and you would really hope there are no widespread issues with that in our country in 2023. Also, we don't have full details of that complaint. The words used were that the person felt like they were prejudged, and it just, we can't get to the bottom of that without a lot more information. What information or what evidence is there for that? What actually happened to the person that makes them say that? I mean, if it is the case, it is very serious, and hopefully RSA is looking into it. But most, as you say, most of the complaints are to do with people feeling like they failed unfairly. They failed the test unfairly. So to the car they've turned up in, or that mistakes they've made themselves. And those make interesting reading.
Yeah, I mean, I failed my first test and passed my second. Personally, I actually felt I drove better on the first test than I drove on the second. I felt I drove better on the one I failed than I drove on the one I passed. In fact, I was convinced I was going to fail the second, and then I was given the pass. So, I mean, sometimes our perception as the testee can be different to the perception of the tester. And I suppose what we have to do in that case is say, look, he or she is the professional. They know what they're doing.
That's right. I mean, I know that there is still a human element in it in terms of the testers, and there'll be some variability. They are given clear guidelines, and actually anybody who's going for a test, well worth their while searching online for the guidelines that the testers receive, because there's a PDF document you can download, and that shows the guidance that the RSA gives to testers and how to mark tests, how to assess people being tested. And it's really interesting reading because it'll help people prepare even better for it. But regardless of that, regardless of how scientific the RSA tries to make the whole process, there's no doubt that there's some human variability in there. And, one tester might let something small go, another might pick up on it, etc. So it's not as black and white as it would ideally be, I guess.
We're told one driver said they'd been marked down because they were being too cautious on the road. Now, I can sort of understand that because, if someone isn't driving with confidence, they can be potentially holding up other traffic and, creating problems in doing that. So I suppose you can be too cautious as well as being too reckless.
Well, 100%. There is no law about driving too slow, but there is guidance on that in terms of if you're causing an obstruction from your overcautious driving, then you could be penalised for undue care and attention. Now, specifically with regards to the driving test, I had a look at the manual for the testers, and there is a section on the driver maintaining decent progress. Now, there's no more measured than that. It's not scientific as such, but if the tester feels that the driver is so nervous or so cautious that they're not making normal progress, they're really slow, they're stopping short of the line at traffic lights, they're not going when the light is green, these kind of things, that they can actually be marked down for it. But it's worth pointing out that one incident of that is unlikely to fail the test. There's a lot more to it than that, and if you're not being dangerous, you're unlikely to fail a test just for instance, not making enough progress a couple of times. There's a lot more to it.
How much of this is down to ourselves as drivers, that when we go into a test, and I'll be honest, it's a long time since I did my test, but when we're going into a test, sometimes, and I felt, certainly for the first test, I was thinking in terms of, first I will have to do a 3-point turn, then I will have to do a hill start, and I was actually thinking about the things I would have to do rather than thinking about the thing I was doing, which was driving. And it's almost as though I started and I was driving along the road, but in my head I was just driving in order to do the things I had to do. And is there a risk that we put too much emphasis on the things and not enough emphasis on the driving to the things, if that makes sense?
No, I understand what you mean. Look, it's a nerve-wracking experience for everybody who does the driving test, no matter how confident they are, no matter how much practice they've put in. It is nerve-wracking because it's one moment. You've probably waited months to get the test, which is an issue still, and it's an €85 fee. So you really do want to pass it in that one moment, and I don't think it's a great system at all. I know it's been improved in recent years. We have the essential driver training where all learners now have to go through a certain number of driving lessons which have specific themes, and that's a big improvement. But I think we need a lot more than that. I think we need off-road, as in not on the public road, facilities where people are trained in the very basics and until they're completely proficient at it, and they don't have to go to a driving test with their nerves and shreds wondering if they can do a 3-point turn. They should have done it hundreds of times already before. And likewise, then that would free up their brain, if you like, for thinking about the important things like driving safely on the road, like you just alluded to.
In terms of one of the other, of course, changes we've seen in more recent years is the introduction of the N plate, where after passing a test for 2 years, the L plates come off, but the N plates go on. Now, tis long before N plates that I passed mine. But has that system worked in terms of saying to people, look, yeah, you've passed your test, but you've now got 2 years to hone your skills, and we're just going to say to people, yeah, they've passed their test, but, give them a bit of leeway because they're still learning?
I'm not sure. I don't personally feel that the end plate itself has any real function, other than perhaps, try to warn other users to give a bit more room, perhaps, to a new driver. I'm not convinced. I think, again, probably following on from what I've just said, and I don't want to bang on about too much, is perhaps more training, more driver training, more practice, so follow on essential driver training, if you like. So, yes, you've passed your test, well done. Now, in the next 2 years, you must also do these 5 modules somewhere where, you get a bit more used to using the motorway. You get used to driving at night and hazard identification, these kind of things. Just slightly more advanced for somebody that is allowed out on the road on their own now, as soon as they got the driving license.
And the other thing that tends not to be part of the test and isn't covered in lessons as often perhaps is parallel parking and actually parking and things like that. Should maybe the system be expanded as such to bring those in? Because I'll be honest, I had a driver's license and I was awful at parking. It took me quite a while to actually even plug up the courage to parallel park, and I would even say now I'm not great at it.
I must admit, I'm the same as you. I did my test a very long time ago, but when I did mine, the parallel parking was part of it. I don't know if it is still. Maybe it isn't. I'm not so sure. I think if we had a system where there was follow-on driver training, that would be great to put into. But really, I think in the initial instance, we need to be training drivers to be safe. We need them to be, watching the road properly, know what they're doing from behind the wheel, and not to be nervous and worrying about manoeuvres. I mean, so what if you can't parallel park perfectly? Like, I think there are people who've been driving for decades who still can't parallel park, and every parking space is different.
Yeah.
It's not really that scientific. So I feel that actually focusing on such things for the driving test day itself is it's not helpful really at all.
The other thing that's changing an awful lot, and in fairness, we're actually going off the brief slightly of the interview, which was about complaints about drivers' experiences. But the other thing that seems to be coming in more and more now is people going for automatic-only licenses and doing tests in automatics, only for automatics, because the thought would be, given that policy is that there'll be no more petrol or diesel cars sold by 2030, and all hybrids and electrics are automatic, I mean, the presumption would appear to be that we'd all be driving automatics within a very short number of years.
That's right. Somebody told me, a friend of mine told me that their kid was doing their driving test and doing it in an automatic only, and I was gobsmacked. I couldn't believe it. It felt such a strange thing to do, to limit yourself to. But in the future, you're absolutely right. I mean, all electric cars are automatic, etc. But I feel people are limiting themselves right now because, in 2030, all manual cars, petrol and diesel cars, they aren't just being scrapped and thrown in a bin. They're still going to be around for quite some time. And it also means that somebody who's passed their test on an automatic license could never drive a classic car with a manual gearbox, for instance. So I think it's very limiting. Yes, of course, it's easier to drive an automatic car. Much easier to drive an automatic car. It is a whole new skill to learn to control a clutch and gears, etc. And perhaps that doesn't help the learner. But I don't know. I would urge learners to make the effort, to be honest.
Yeah. Shane O'Donoghue, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. 180 complaints every month, we're told, as we said, about driving tests. It's a story we'll be looking at, and hopefully the sort of analysis that you say is necessary will take place sooner rather than later. Shane, for the moment, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Donal.
Thank you, Shane. That's Shane there, the editor of CompleteCar.ie. It is 16 minutes to 12 midday, 16 minutes left before I take my leave and hand you over to John Breslin, who'll be around the Northwest for 2.5 hours until 2:30. But right now, we're going to take a short break. Back after these.
There's never been a better time to go full Lidl. Let's hear it from our customers.
It's great value for money, and it's first and foremost.
Anyone that has a big family, they should be shopping in Lidl, without a doubt. They have a holiday at the end of the year.
Go on, go full Lidl today.
Preparing for a special occasion? Sorrento Shoes has the finishing touch. Shoes and bags in pastel shades, bling or classic neutrals. Sorrento Shoes. Available in all leading shoe stores.
Farmers know when it's time to get moving. Like when the alarm goes off first thing in the morning. They know it's time to move the herd in for milking. And when it comes to insurance, farmers are discovering why it's time for another move. With AXA Smart Farm Insurance, switching couldn't be easier. You don't have to fill out any long documents to join, so the process is as pain-free as possible. So, if you're paying more than you should be, ask yourself, is it time for a move? For a quote, search axa.ie/farm. AXA. Know you can. Terms and conditions apply. AXA Insurance DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Fancy a European city break this summer? Discover the beautiful cities of Barcelona, Cologne and Milan with Ryanair. 6 flights a week for summer 2023. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
And you're welcome back to the 9 till noon show. Just to let you know, Met Éireann are telling us that it's going to turn cloudy or rain spreading northwards right across the region starting about now, I'm afraid. Heavy downpours in places during the evening and becoming blustery with southerly winds, increasing fresh to strong and gusty in the afternoon, veering west in the evening. Top temperatures today cooler than recently, 7 to 9 degrees Celsius. Tonight, blustery with fresh southwest winds, possibly very windy earlier on. And rain then will hit in, clear with clear spells later, but heavy showers also developing. Lowest overnight temperatures 0 to 3 degrees Celsius. I love it when they say clear with a chance of some heavy showers. That is what you call covering all your bases. Now, I am delighted to say I am joined in the studio by a world champion. And if you're looking on our YouTube or Facebook page, you will see a huge trophy with a really good-looking globe on it smack in the middle of the picture. We're joined, I'm delighted to say, by Emily from Donal. Emily, good morning.
Hello, how are you? Good morning.
Very well indeed. Emily Kavanagh, the world under-19 Irish dancing champion, just back from Montreal in the past day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely wrecked, but you know, it's been absolutely amazing, and like the amount of people that have just been like messaging, and it's just been amazing. And you know, I came home from Donal Airport and the dancing school were there, and I'm so grateful. Like there was banners and posters and everything made, and you know, it was just so overwhelming, but it's been absolutely amazing, the support I've had, so I'm really grateful.
This isn't a one-off, this is your third trophy.
Yeah, this is my third one, and I'm going to be retiring now competitively. I have my leaving cert coming up, so that's going to be the main focus. So I'll be back to the books now straight away after this, and then I'm just going to take a break, and I'm going to go on to do the professional shows then. So it's a lot of things to look forward to.
And that's in the family, because I mean your brother Tomas, 4 Ulster titles. Only Ulster titles, and I'm sure you remind him of that from time to time. But he's pro at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, he's absolutely amazing. He's actually watching as well. He's on tour with Celtic Legends at the moment in France. So I want to say a big hello to Thomas and Mitch, who's watching all the way from France on the tour of Celtic Legends, because you know that's absolutely amazing. And Thomas has been supporting and watching me all through the Worlds in Montreal, and so is the whole cast. So I got loads of videos when I won of them all screaming.
Excellent. Can you just pull the trophy a little closer to itself, because what we have now is we can see the trophy, but we can't see your face.
Yep.
And you know, I don't want to. So actually, if you put it over closer to where those headphones are and just push it over a bit more. Yeah, perfect. That's lovely, because we were obscuring your face, which is where it was. You know, no, it's lovely to have it in the centre of the shop. We want to be able to see you as well. You're with the McNeilis Cunningham School of Irish Dancing, Emily, and I presume you've been at this since you were knee height for a grasshopper.
Yeah, I started dancing when I was 3.5, so I've been dancing for like 15 years now, so it's been amazing. And you know, I'm in like literally a school of like absolute ladies. My teachers are so nice, and they're so supportive, and you know, I'm so grateful to them for all their help over the years, because it takes a team for something like this to happen, and without the support of them and the help and the encouragement, you know, I really wouldn't be here.
But this surely must be more than going to Irish dancing lessons, being dragged to a kicking and screaming one day a week. I mean, you've obviously been putting in the hard yards. They say perfection takes 10,000 hours of practice. To achieve what you've been achieving, you've done 10,000 hours and more. This wasn't just once a week for half an hour.
Yeah, I mean, like there's intense training that goes into it, and you know, we really do train like Olympians. And I do actually cross train as well. So I have a personal trainer called Anne-Marie. She's from Donal, and I train with her twice a week. And then on top of that, I do my dancing practice as well. So, you know, it does take a lot of work for something like this to happen, and you have to have the strength behind it as well. So, you know, Anne-Marie's been amazing too, and she's really helped me over the years. So I'm really grateful to her too.
And it is physically demanding. I mean, you know, this is, I mean, I don't want to say it's a competitive sport, but in a way it is. I mean, you are pushing yourself to the limit.
Yeah, you really are. And like, it does take blood, sweat and tears, but you know, if you really work hard, listen to your teachers, and you have the right family and the right, you know, encouragement behind you and support, you know, something like this can happen, you know. I'm just so grateful.
I presume there's an international network, and that when you were competing in Montreal, you would have known an awful lot of the girls you were competing against, because you've probably been competing against each other since you were 11 or 12. I follow Formula 1, and there's great pictures of, you see videos of Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc having an argument when they're both 10 in go-karts, and they've kept it right through up to Formula 1. I'm sure it's the same in you, that you competed against girls in Montreal that you probably first came across when you were 10, 11, 12.
Oh, the friends and the memories you make dancing is just incredible. Like, I have one of the best memories, you know, of Irish dancing has been like most like the Worlds and all these international competitions, because you have like Americans, you've got like people from all over the world coming, and like it's just amazing meeting up with them and, you know, sharing your love for dance, because everyone has that in common. And, you know, it's just amazing. You know, I've met some absolutely amazing people dancing, and I'm so grateful.
Were the Worlds in Belfast this time last year?
Yes, they were.
And the reason I can say that actually is, as it happens, it was a year ago tonight, I was at a concert in the Ulster Hall.
Oh. Oh.
So I stayed in it was then Jury's Hotel. I think it's now called the Leonardo
Yes.
Hotel. I think
Yeah.
it's actually been changed. But there was a major dance championship on that week.
Yeah.
I think
Probably the world.
my daughter and I think, were the only two non-Irish dancing
Oh my God.
people staying in that hotel. And that hotel, I can tell you, was fairly mad.
Yeah, I mean, like the night after the Worlds, like we've had such amazing memories, you know, like with going to some pools and, you know, dancing. Like this Worlds in Montreal, we had the Hills of Donegal playing and we were up dancing like in the middle of Montreal, like, and I think the bar staff were ready to kill us.
Yeah. You're 19.
Yes, I am.
Talk to me about the discipline, because you're not going to the pub with your mates on a Friday night.
No.
Not regularly. You're
No.
certainly not going to the disco. You're not coming into Letterkenny or going in wherever to go to the discos and hit the tiles and coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning with a couple of WKDs or whatever.
No.
You know, you have got to be really, really careful, and you have had to make a choice, I suspect, from a very early age that I am not going to go down that road.
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, the discipline that you have to have with dancing, like, is incredible. You know, I've had numerous times I've seen my friends out partying and having the best time of their lives, and I've been at home because I'm in bed early. I've danced in the next morning, and I think that's kind of where, like, you know, after the Worlds, you kind of get to have that, you know, time that you get to celebrate, and it makes it even more special. But yeah, you know, you have to give up so many things with dancing, and that's the sacrifice you have to make. But, you know, that's where you get something like this then. And, you know, there's numerous nights that I've kind of given up and I've been really, really annoyed and been like, oh, I really wanted to go out that night, but it's just been so worth it when things like this happen, because you have to have your sleep, and you have to have your discipline, and, you know, with school especially too, you know, you have to just for this next few months, you have to stay on track and not be going out mad the weekend.
Talk to me about the commitment and the family financial commitment when it gets into Irish dancing. I mean, you hear some prices for the dresses that would boggle the mind.
Yeah.
Even things like the wigs. Now, and I will be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the wigs. I actually...
They're quite sore.
I can imagine. And I'll be honest, I am looking at you, and I will say it up front. I mean, you know, you are a very well presented and good looking young person who
Thank
does
you.
not need a wig to make herself look in any way. You know, so from that point of view, the actual money that goes into the dresses and to the wigs and to everything else, it must be a huge financial commitment for a family starting off. And once you're getting into the Worlds, I'm sure the actual costs of the dresses and the wigs and the shoes and everything that goes with it at the Worlds is going to rise exponentially, because you have got to go there with the absolute best, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, there's a lot of things that do go into it, and there's a lot of things, you know, your family has to sacrifice in order to make something like this happen. And that's why I say I'm grateful to so many people, and my family and teachers especially, because, you know, they all came over and they all supported me, and, you know, went to the Worlds and stuff, and I just think it's absolutely amazing, and I'm so grateful to them, because I know it's such a hard thing to do as well, to give up. But, you know, we have one of these now, and I'm just so happy.
As you said, Tomas is dancing with the Celtic Legends Tour
Yes,
in
he is.
France at the moment. Have you had offers in terms, as you say, first and foremost, Leaving Cert is on the cards,
Yes.
so it's dive into the books now between now and June.
Yeah.
Once June is finished, I mean, do you have offers on the table?
Yeah.
Presumably, I mean, everyone in the professional shows knows who you are. They all know you have that in front of you.
Yeah.
And, you know, who needs a CV when you have that trophy,
Oh.
you know?
You know, the absolute dream would be Riverdance, because I just love that show so much. But yes, I just have to get the Leaving Cert out of the way first, and, you know, I want to have a wee break, you know, just to kind of transition between, you know, the show dance and the professional dancing. I think then come maybe September, so I'll start with the show dancing and start a new chapter of my life.
Yeah. Is Riverdance touring at the moment?
They are. I think they just finished their European tour, and they're still doing their American tour. So, I mean, it would just be the dream to do something like that, you know.
But there's no doubt once it becomes known that Emily is awaiting offers, those offers presumably. I mean, do you get an agent? How does this work?
No.
Would they contact you? I mean, I'm sure there is a network within Irish dancing where you know people who know people who know. You're probably one, if at most two steps away from Riverdance. You know someone who knows someone who knows the booking agent. If you don't know the booking agent directly at this stage.
You know, just like show dancing is so much different than competitive dancing, and like it doesn't really matter who you are with, you know, show dancing. You know, you just kind of, it's all about, you know, like how you present yourself on stage with show dancing, and you're using your arms as well, which is a thing that we don't use in competitive dancing. So that's, you know, some people can do that and some people can't. So, you know, it's just up to the person really. And you know, I have applied for a few shows, so I have, but I'm just kind of waiting until after leaving cert, and then once I get that out of the road, then I can just.
And in a sense, you've anticipated what my final question is going to be. How regimented are the routines you do for the competitions now? Can you put your own personality into them? Can you come up with your own moves, or are you doing what your teachers lay out, or do they give you a basic structure and you add to it, or are you? Is it a communication between the two?
So there's, like with my dance, when we're choreographing or we're making up steps, you know, I have my one dance teacher, Paula, and she always makes up the steps for me, and I think it takes a few goes before we kind of get the final one. But my side of dancing's like very kind of, my leg comes out a lot, and you know, I kind of throw some stuff in sometimes, and I'll show Paula and she'll be like, nope, don't like it, or whatever, and then we'll try and think of something new. But it does, like, that's what I mean, it takes a team for something like that to happen, and you know, we work with each other, and all the different dance teachers, you know, add something into the dancing themselves and the routines. So like, that's what I mean, I'm so grateful to have all of their expertise, because each one of them has, you know, something different to say, so it's brilliant.
And once you get into show dancing, you will have a choreographer who will show you.
Oh, you just learn the stuff
exactly
they
what
have.
to do, and you do it when they say to do it. Emily, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and we wish you all the best with the career, but most importantly right now, wish you all the best with the leaving
I think I'll need that too. Thank you.
You well done. Congratulations. An amazing achievement. Now, before we go, I want to go to line one, because I know Eddie was on line one. Eddie, are you still there?
Oh, I'm still here, yeah.
Eddie,
so
thank you so much for waiting. Eddie, I'm sorry I ran over there. You were at the Etihad Stadium, which is Man City Stadium, a few weeks back, and you were checked for jerseys as well.
Yeah, so listen, I do have an air of sympathy for John there and what happened to him at St Mary's at Southampton, but I went over for the Man City Aston Villa game, well, it was simple enough. What happened was we were walking up, and obviously we were asked for the tickets, and then it was a cold enough day, so I was well wrapped up, but I had the City jersey on, and obviously they had a quick look to make sure I had a City jersey on before I went into the home side of the ground. And then I noticed there was a little incident at a place called I think it's Mary D's, whereby a Man City fan and an Aston Villa fan they were obviously friends. They were walking up together, and the Villa guy was stopped from getting in because he was wearing an Aston Villa top.
And I suppose and that's a sad thing to hear, because, you know, I'm sure there are friendships between various people who support various clubs, and, you know, they're going to have to be very circumspect about where they go after the game. I mean, I was at a game once, and I was in the away supporters end because I was with my brother, who was it was an Aston Villa Chelsea game at Villa Park. My brother is a Chelsea supporter. I don't have a team. The closest I have to a team is Leyton Orient, because I lived in Leyton when I was in London. But you know, we were there, and there was no way we would have had any contact with anyone who was in the Villa home end. I mean, we were pretty much escorted from the stadium to the bus to the train station. It was really interesting the way it was done. Eddie, listen, thanks very much indeed. Thank you for waiting, and thanks for the comment there. That's the end of the show. Thank you so much to all our participants. Thanks to you for listening. Thanks to Niamh and to Caroline for taking your calls. Thanks to Caroline for producing and for looking after me, as she always does. We're back again tomorrow. Coming up next, it's John around the Northwest.
It's the Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring biggest ever sale. Up to 50% off everything in store. All tiles, all wood flooring, all outdoor slabs, cladding and bathware. Everything slashed in price. This sale is not to be missed. The Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring biggest ever half-price sale is now on.
Dillon's Hotel, Letterkenny.